If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 41, The Three Before Me Are the Future of This World, Bonus. Young Master Satoru, Young Master Satoshi. For the time being, I have to cooperate with a Grade 1 sorcerer from the association to carry out missions. I may not be able to protect you anymore. After confirming the news from Kuma-en, Shanichi had no choice but to comply with the association's orders. After all, while the Gojo family was one of the three great families, the authority of the Jujutsu Sorcerers Association was absolute. Since the Gojo family had submitted the application, Shanichi had no choice but to undergo the promotion assessment. This was part of the contingency plan Kuma-en had prepared as soon as he sensed Shanichi's potential defiance. The moment Shanichi showed any inclination to challenge him, Kuma-en had been ready to remove him from the Gojo family temporarily, at least. Initially, he hadn't intended to use this measure so soon. But Shanichi's overwhelming victory over Yaji-sama using his Zanpakut had changed everything. As a rising master of Kendo, Shanichi's status within the Twin Curse faction was bound to skyrocket. And with Satoshi proving the power of his second Zanpakut, his growing influence could destabilize the internal unity of the Twin Curse faction. Thus, when sending off Yaji Yuzuki, they coordinated with the Yaji family, using their influence within the association to ensure that the sorcerer assigned to assess Shanichi's promotion would be from the Yaji family. This meant that, when the time came, the Grade 1 sorcerer overseeing the assessment would take Shanichi away from Tokyo, effectively removing an unpredictable element from the Twin Curse faction's internal power balance. When the news reached the forge, the people inside were visibly surprised. Satoshi, who had been focused on his work and hadn't paid attention to the aftermath of Shanichi's match, hadn't realized what had transpired. However, he genuinely felt it was a good thing that Gojo Shanichi was being promoted to Grade 1. After all, in the current Jujutsu world, a Grade 1 sorcerer was considered a top-tier combat force. If Shanichi advanced, it would only strengthen Satoshi's position as well. Satoru immediately clapped his hands, jumping up to congratulate Shanichi on his promotion in advance. Toji gave a silent nod. Though he wasn't a sorcerer himself, he understood the weight of a Grade 1 sorcerer's status. Shanichi's promotion would give him greater influence in the future. At the same time, however, Toji's gaze lingered on Shanichi, his mind contemplating something entirely different. Could I kill him in one strike if I attacked right now? Toji touched the scar on his lip, coming to a firm conclusion. It wouldn't be difficult. A Grade 1 sorcerer might be strong, but they weren't inhuman. A well-placed stab to the heart or a clean decapitation would kill them just like anyone else. Feeling the faint yet unmistakable malice in Toji's gaze, Shanichi instinctively tensed. It was as if a predator was sizing him up, waiting for the perfect moment to tear him apart. What kind of monster is this man? Did he not even use his full strength when fighting against young Master Satoshi before? That's terrifying. Just how strong is Zenan Toji? This person is too dangerous. Has he already figured out the real reason behind my sudden promotion? How could someone like him so easily accept Master Satoshi? Young Master Satoshi's secrets are no less significant than young Master Satoru's. And this heir of the Zenan family, he's no ordinary person either. Shanichi took a deep breath, glancing at the three people before him. As expected, he couldn't betray Satoru or Satoshi. Kuma-en's offer had been tempting, but if it meant standing against these three... Haha, I'm not an idiot. Before him stood a wielder of the Six Eyes, a heavenly restriction monster, and a sorcerer who possessed both the Six Eyes, and an unparalleled forging ability. These kinds of prodigies were rare even once in a century, yet they had all appeared in the same era. Shanichi had no doubt, the future would be defined by conflict. If the Gojo family remained obsessed with internal struggles, it would only lead to its downfall. Satoshi and Satoru were destined to be the true pillars of the Gojo family. As for people like Kuma-en, power-hungry relics clinging to authority, they would inevitably be swept away like debris. With that realization, Shanichi took Toji's earlier glare as a warning. His eyes hardened with resolve as he looked at Satoshi and spoke in a firm voice. Young Master Satoshi, my promotion to Grade 1 is part of a conspiracy. The Twin Curse faction is scheming to control the future of the Gojo family. In order to prevent the truth about Suzumushi from spreading, I was deliberately removed. Elder Kuma-en doesn't want your reputation within the clan to grow any further. I'm sorry, I still can't activate Suzumushi's ability yet. That's why I couldn't prove in the dojo that it's a true Zanpakut. Regret filled Shanichi's face. Perhaps I lack talent. Satoshi could use Sodi no Shirayuki's ability immediately after forging it. I've been trying for nearly an hour, and I haven't sensed any sign of Suzumushi's technique. If I had been able to unleash its ability, Kuma-en's plan wouldn't have succeeded. Upon learning that Shanichi's promotion was part of a larger scheme, that the entire situation revolved around suppressing Satoshi, Satoru's young face darkened. Although Kuma-en had always been his supporter, targeting Satoshi like this had crossed a line. He wanted to go confront Kuma-en himself, to expose his schemes and put an end to this nonsense. But before he could act, Satoshi stopped him. Seeing Satoru's expression, Satoshi, as his twin brother, immediately knew what he was thinking. Yet, instead of anger, a small smile appeared on his face. He didn't seem concerned at all. Instead, he calmly pulled Satoru back down before he could get up. "Oh? I see. But still, congratulations, Shanichi. Advancing to grade 1 is an opportunity, it will be useful for both Satoru and me in the long run. As for Kuma-en's plan, well, I don't particularly oppose it." Satoshi's words made both Satoru and Toji frown. It was obvious that Kuma-en was targeting him. So why was Satoshi so calm, so indifferent? If this had happened to either of them, they definitely wouldn't have taken it so lightly. Chapter 42, The Zenan Clan? I can always leave if I want to, bonus. Shanichi was just as confused as the others when he heard Satoshi's response. Young Master Satoshi was the one openly opposed by the Twin Curse faction, so why was he so calm in the face of Kuma-en's scheme? Seeing the puzzled expressions of the three, Satoshi simply shook his head. "I need Kuma-en to help clean up the mess in the Gojo family for both me and Satoru. The head of the clan is ill, which means opportunists and parasites are bound to crawl out of hiding. Let Kuma-en deal with them first. Satoru and I are still young, we don't have the time or patience to waste on political games. Since he's so eager to handle it, we might as well let him. The most important thing is that the very foundation of the so-called Twin Curse faction is built entirely on me. I hold absolute control. As long as I can prove that I'm not Satoru's curse, the entire ideological basis of the faction collapses. Even if Kuma-en remains the de facto head, he won't hold any real power." A glint of cold indifference flashed in Satoshi's blue eyes. In the world of Jujutsu, strength dictated everything. If he had never met Toji, he might have been more concerned about Kuma-en's actions. But now, not only did he know Toji, but Satoru had also mastered the limitless technique, and he himself possessed a Zanpakut. Kuma-en's so-called schemes were nothing more than stepping stones, paving the way for him and Satoru to take over the clan in the future. They were both bearers of the Six Eyes. With their overwhelming strength and lineage, all it would take was a single command from Satoru, and the entire Gojo family would fall in line. At worst, Kuma-en and his followers would make a final, desperate struggle. But between the three of them, Satoru, Toji, and himself, they had no need to fear anyone. And in the future, once he forged Zanpakut for both Satoru and Toji, their power would surpass even their current heights. What was Kuma-en going to do? Find Ryomen Sukuna and ask him to assassinate them? Too bad. Even if Sukuna showed up, they wouldn't be afraid. "Satoshi, you're not a curse." Satoru's face darkened with dissatisfaction the moment his brother referred to himself that way. He knew Satoshi's situation better than anyone. There was no way he would let his brother belittle himself like that. All right, I get it. It was just an example." Under the glare of Satoru's six eyes, Satoshi could only raise his hands in surrender. "So, Satoru, let Kuma-en do the dirty work for us. I really enjoy freeloading." Satoshi's carefree words made Satoru drop his earlier thoughts of confrontation. Shanichi, on the other hand, was left completely stunned. He never would have imagined that this 6-year-old boy had already thought so far ahead, far beyond what even Kuma-en could comprehend. Kuma-en had once advised him to look at the bigger picture, to see beyond the immediate situation, and to focus on the essence rather than surface-level conflicts. But now, it was clear that those words applied far more to Satoshi than anyone else. Compared to Satoshi, it was Kuma-en who was short-sighted. Realizing this, Shanichi couldn't help but feel a deep sense of awe toward Satoshi. What a terrifying child! The Gojo family was truly fortunate to have someone like him among its heirs. If, before this conversation, Shanichi had firmly believed that Satoru was the rightful successor, that belief was now shaken. Satoru's strength was undeniable, but his personality was unpredictable and wild. Satoshi, on the other hand, was calm, composed, and strategic. He thought ahead, planning every move carefully, traits far more suited for managing an entire clan. At this moment, as he gazed into Satoshi's blue eyes, the young boy before him seemed to grow larger and larger in his mind. And then, in an instant, Toji shattered that illusion. "Oi, Satoshi, have you ever been to a brothel? Do you know the meaning of the phrase freeloading like a whore? I may be a simple man, but I share the same hobbies as Satoshi. I like getting things for free, too. So how about this? Let's cancel our earlier agreement. I'd rather just take what I want for free." Toji's casual, teasing remark instantly broke the tension in the forge, filling the room with an absurd sense of amusement. Satoshi's cold and calculating expression twisted into one of sheer exasperation. "Toji, could you focus on the important part of the conversation for once? I'm talking about serious matters here." He sighed in defeat. No matter what, this guy always managed to zero in on the least important thing. All right, Toji waved dismissively, fanning his nose as if he could smell something foul. "But honestly, I can't stand all the politics in these big families. It reeks of decay." Satoru, Satoshi, and Shanichi all fell silent. Of all people, Toji had no right to complain about the corruption of Jujutsu families. After all, if any clan embodied stubbornness and backward thinking, it was the Zenan family. If the Zenan clan claimed second place in corruption, no other family would dare claim first. A mere heir of the Zenan family had no business mocking the Gojo clan. Even though Toji had exuded a terrifying presence earlier, Shanichi couldn't let this go. Just as he opened his mouth to retort, Toji cut him off with a single sentence. "What's so great about being a Zenan, anyway? If I wanted to leave the Zenan family, I could do it anytime. Who the hell is going to stop me?" Shanichi and Satoru froze, their eyes widening in disbelief. Was Toji joking? Only Satoshi remained unfazed, wearing the same wry smile. He knew the truth of Toji's future. This was the man who would one day abandon the Zenan name and take on another identity, Fushiguro Toji, the father of Fushiguro Megami. A man who would sever all ties with his prestigious clan and start anew in a family no one had ever heard of. Because of that, Satoshi had even considered the possibility of recruiting Toji into the Gojo family. As for Satoru and Shunichi, the mere thought of a Zenan heir defecting to their clan had never once crossed their minds. After all, such a thing was unheard of. The Zenan family would never allow it. Even if Toji was just an ordinary person with no cursed energy, the idea of him abandoning the Zenan name was beyond their imagination. Chapter 43, Kendo Master Satoshi. Young Master Satoshi, since Kuma-en's target is Suzumashi, I'll return it to you. I can't use Suzumashi's technique, but you can. If Kuma-en questions your strength, you can use Suzumashi to prove yourself. Ever since encountering Sodi no Shirayuki and Suzumashi, Shunichi had developed an almost blind trust in Satoshi. He never doubted whether Satoshi could wield the Suzumashi technique. Even though he felt some reluctance, he was still determined to return Suzumashi to Satoshi. He had no desire to be involved in the schemes of the Twin Curse faction. However, to his surprise, Satoshi shook his head in refusal. Instead of worrying about this kind of thing, it's better to focus on mastering Suzumashi. Completing Shikai and achieving Bankai as soon as possible would be the best reward for me. Suzumashi is of no use to me. Is it just to prove I can forge a Zanpakut? Haha, why should I care about what others think? Besides, I haven't even seen what a cursed spirit truly looks like yet. Let me experience the cruelty of this world through Suzumashi's vision. Keep using Suzumashi. Master Shikai as soon as possible and unlock its technique. Don't worry about anything else. Do you really think the assessment for a grade 1 sorcerer is that easy? Now that you've lost Cicada's Cry, are you planning to find a new weapon that suits you better? Satoru and Toji just told me about the recent kendo competition. You don't want to end up like Yaji-saman, do you? Satoshi's words struck deep into Shanichi's heart. Especially the mention of Yaji-saman's fate, it sent chills down his spine. Shunichi let out a long sigh and nodded. If I didn't have my Zanpakut, Suzumashi, would I still be capable of becoming a grade 1 sorcerer? Shunichi had confidence in himself, but having Suzumashi as his support was also a form of security. He could feel the concern in Satoshi's words, and his loyalty toward him increased slightly. Although Satoshi had initially returned Suzumashi in exchange for a reward, in the end, this arrangement still improved Shanichi's overall strength. But before you leave, let's have one final kendo spar. This time, you use Suzumashi, and I'll use Sodi no Shirayuki. I can't use Sodi no Shirayuki's techniques either, but perhaps fighting with a Zanpakut will help you connect with Suzumashi more easily. Satoshi unsheathed Sodi no Shirayuki, his calm expression hiding a hint of excitement. Shanichi was about to leave the Gojo clan to undertake his grade 1 promotion assessment. Once he left, there would be no more opportunities to train in kendo together. After the kendo match between Shanichi and Yaji-saman, Satoshi's kendo proficiency had reached 99.9%, just a tiny fraction away from completion. Originally, Satoshi had expected that after watching a duel between two kendo masters, he would finally unlock Hakuda, hand-to-hand combat. However, due to the issue with Suzumashi, the match had ended in vain, leaving him one step short. Regretting the missed opportunity to maximize his kendo proficiency, Satoshi decided to take matters into his own hands. On one hand, he wanted to help Shanichi develop a deeper connection with Suzumashi. On the other, he needed to push his kendo mastery to its limit and unlock Hakuda as soon as possible. Once Shanichi left, he could continue sparring with Toji. After all, when it came to unarmed combat, Toji was among the strongest in the entire Jujutsu world. Hearing Satoshi's request, Shanichi was moved. Unaware of Satoshi's true intention to max out his kendo proficiency, Shanichi assumed he was simply trying to help him gain Suzumashi's full recognition and unlock its Shikai as soon as possible. Determined, he gripped Suzumashi in its sealed Asachi state and prepared for the duel. Dance, Sodi no Shirayuki. Wanting to prolong the exchange, Satoshi immediately activated Sodi no Shirayuki's Shikai. On the sidelines, Satoru and Toji silently admired the elegance of Sodi no Shirayuki, completely ignoring Shanichi. Though they had seen Sodi no Shirayuki before, witnessing its transformation from a plain Asachi to its pristine and beautiful Shikai form still left them in awe. Young Master Satoshi, I wonder, will Suzumashi be as beautiful as Sodi no Shirayuki when it awakens? Shanichi voiced his thoughts unconsciously. As expected, even a hardened warrior like Shanichi couldn't resist the allure of something truly beautiful. Of course, Satoshi wouldn't tell him the truth. After all, Sodi no Shirayuki was known as the most beautiful Zanpakut. It was only natural for its appearance to reflect that. As for Suzumashi, its abilities were excellent, but its appearance was, well, ordinary. Clang! 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 The host is receiving instruction from a sword master. Kendo experience plus 10. The host is receiving instruction from a sword master. Kendo experience plus 10. The host is receiving instruction from a sword master. Kendo experience plus 10. The sound of Zanpakut clashing echoed throughout the room. Yet, despite his repeated exchanges, the final 0.1% of experience refused to budge. Eventually, the system's prompt changed. The host is receiving instruction from a sword master. Kendo experience plus 0. Satoshi frowned. If his kendo proficiency could no longer increase, that meant he had already reached the limit. But why was it still stuck at 99.9% instead of reaching 100%? While exchanging blows with Shanichi, Satoshi began recalling all the kendo techniques he had learned. Flashes of past training surfaced in his mind. As the duel became increasingly mechanical, Satoshi unknowingly entered a trance-like state. And then, his accumulated kendo experience started to fade away. Kendo experience, 99.9%. Kendo experience, 90.9%. Kendo experience, 80.9%. Kendo experience, 10.9%. Kendo experience, 0%. Unknowingly, his entire kendo proficiency had reset to 0. At that moment, Satoshi felt an unprecedented sense of clarity, as though an invisible barrier had shattered. All the techniques he had once painstakingly learned suddenly merged together, forming a seamless whole. When he snapped back to reality, he saw that the Suzumashi in Shinika's hand had been knocked away, and Sodi no Shirayuki was now pressed against Shinika's neck. A biting chill filled the entire forging room. Chapter 44, Hakuda, Bonus. What just happened? How did young Master Satoshi's swordsmanship improve so drastically in an instant? This doesn't make any sense. Shanichi, who had been dueling with Satoshi, was utterly shocked. As a kendo master, he fully understood how advanced Satoshi's attack just now was. If just a second ago, Satoshi's skill was on the level of a beginner who had only recently grasped the Gojo Kyokushin Ryu, then now, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he had already mastered the Gojo Kyokushin Ryu itself. How could someone change so drastically in mere moments? Shanichi could no longer assess Satoshi using conventional experience. Was this the talent of the Six Eyes? Even without cursed energy, was Satoshi far beyond ordinary humans in other aspects? Since he had no idea that Satoshi possessed a system, Shanichi could only attribute it to raw talent. And yet, even that explanation seemed unreasonable. Describing Satoshi's growth as gradual and the result of diligent practice would be an insult to the concept of training itself. After all, only a little over a month had passed since Satoshi began learning kendo. If just 1 month of practice could produce results like this, then wouldn't all the renowned sword masters in history be so ashamed that they'd throw themselves into a well? There was only one conclusion: Gojo Satoshi was a genius beyond reason. Toji, standing on the sidelines, slightly raised an eyebrow as he observed Satoshi's swordplay. Even though Toji relied on heavenly restriction and had no cursed energy, he still possessed extensive combat experience with weapons. Because of this, he could fully appreciate the precise timing of Satoshi's attack. A second earlier, and the strike would have missed. A second later, and it would have been blocked. Yet, Satoshi perfectly found the opening in Shanichi's stance, neither too soon nor too late, and disarmed him in a single slash. The kendo master had lost his weapon. That meant the duel was over. A 6-year-old Gojo Satoshi, wielding Sodi no Shirayuki, had defeated the kendo master Gojo Shanichi. Though this outcome was also influenced by Shanichi holding back, the fact remained: Satoshi had demonstrated his true level in kendo and won. On the other side, Satoru's 6 eyes flickered with shock, and for the first time in his life, a hint of unease crept into his heart. He had always known that Satoshi was powerful, but in his mind, this was only because of his Zanpakut. In fact, deep down, Satoru didn't view Satoshi as strong. He believed that Sodi no Shirayuki's ability was what made him formidable. In his eyes, Satoshi was still someone who needed his protection. That was why Satoru had always stayed by his side. Part of it was curiosity about Zanpakut forging, of course. But the bigger reason was that he worried someone might try to harm Satoshi. Satoru had always felt guilty towards Satoshi. So rather than leaving him vulnerable, he chose to stay close and keep watch. But now, after witnessing Satoshi's kendo mastery, Satoru had a sudden realization. Aside from his 6 eyes, his immense cursed energy, and his mastery of Limitless, what other advantages did he truly have over Satoshi? He didn't know how to forge weapons, so he could never create a game-changing Zanpakut like Satoshi. He didn't know kendo, so he could never reach unfathomable sword mastery in just a single instant. For the first time, Satoru doubted himself. Does Satoshi even need my protection? I possess Limitless, but, do I really have the confidence to protect him? In that moment, Satoru finally understood. He had been too arrogant. Satoshi had awakened something within him. Not only is he more mature than me, but his actions are far more composed as well. Perhaps, only after I have truly mastered Limitless can I stand before Satoshi and say, Satoshi, I will protect you. For the first time, the eccentric Gojo Satoru developed a mentality of actively pursuing strength. Because deep down, he was afraid. If he didn't keep growing stronger, one day, he might fall behind Satoshi. And then, he would become the one who needed protecting. If Satoshi knew what Satoru was thinking right now, he would only push harder. To him, anything that forced Satoru to work harder was a good thing. Satoshi snapped out of his thoughts and noticed the stunned expressions around him. Only then did he realize he had just broken through a barrier in kendo. Opening his system panel, he saw that his kendo proficiency had reached maximum capacity, unlocking new abilities. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching 100% proficiency in Zanjutsu, swordsmanship, Hakuda, hand-to-hand combat, have now been unlocked. That mysterious state earlier, was that the feeling of breaking through the limits of kendo? Even though Satoshi couldn't replicate that attack perfectly, reaching this level meant he had already mastered countless techniques. The system is as broken as ever. Of course, it also helped that, due to heavenly restriction, his physical body was exceptionally suited for kendo. That's why Zanjutsu had improved so quickly. Now that Zanjutsu was complete, it was time to focus on the next discipline, Hakuda. Satoshi's gaze landed on Toji, scrutinizing his muscular frame like he was a rare treasure. It turns out that making friends with Toji was the right choice after all. A physically invincible bodyguard with heavenly restriction, and a hand-to-hand combat master, all in one package. Next, he just needed to figure out how to exploit Toji for free training. Satoshi even considered whether he should forge Toji's Zanpakut in advance, so that every time Toji fought, Satoshi could just farm free experience. But after thinking it over, he discarded the idea. First of all, the materials for forging a Zanpakut were extremely rare. Even though Satoshi had figured out the forging process, gathering enough materials would take a long time. If he had reincarnated into a small, weak clan, it was likely he wouldn't even have seen a single Zanpakut by now. Besides, he had already promised Satoru that his Zanpakut would be the next priority. Although, at the moment, his dear brother had nothing of value that Satoshi could take advantage of. Still, he was family, after all. Chapter 45, Satoru caught off guard. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Feeling Satoshi's somewhat hungry gaze, even Toji, who possessed heavenly restriction and an incredibly strong body, couldn't help but shudder subconsciously. Isn't this kid acting a little too strange today? Today alone, Satoshi had forged another Zanpakut and achieved a breakthrough in Kendo. If this had happened to an adult, Toji would have thought, this guy has some potential. He might make a name for himself in the future. But this was a 6-year-old. Toji felt like the world was personally smacking him in the face. People his age hadn't even had their time to shine yet, but these kids Satoshi and Satoru were already so far ahead it was ridiculous. No, I was just thinking about how strong your hand-to-hand combat is, Toji. We both have heavenly restriction, so we should prioritize physical combat development in the future. I'm planning to train my hand-to-hand combat too. Satoshi's words instantly silenced everyone. Shanichi, in particular, was stunned. He had just lost to Satoshi in Kendo. But now, just minutes later, was Satoshi already moving on to something else? Was he really going to abandon Kendo just like that? Young Master Satoshi, you can't waste your talent. If you train properly, the Gojo family could have a young sword master in just a few years. Shanichi wanted to stop him. But before he could say anything, Satoru beat him to it. Satoshi, you're not going to continue learning Kendo? Why are you suddenly focusing on hand-to-hand combat? Satoshi raised an eyebrow in surprise. Why would I stop? I'm still improving my Kendo. But I'll be training my hand-to-hand combat as well. Satoru, what's the issue? Satoru suddenly felt like he had lost control of the situation. Satoshi had just made a breakthrough in Kendo. Yet mere seconds later, he was already bored of it. Was it really necessary to move on this fast? Satoru had always had an eccentric personality, lazy, carefree, and completely unconcerned with self-improvement. But now, seeing Satoshi's rapid progress, he felt something he had never felt before. A sense of urgency. It's nothing. As long as you're happy. Satoru sighed in resignation. In just a few minutes, Satoshi had forced him to rethink his approach to training twice. Shanichi, seeing Satoru already give in, had no choice but to accept the outcome. If Satoshi wanted to train both Kendo and hand-to-hand combat, then so be it. Besides, he wouldn't be staying at the Gojo residence for a while. And, more importantly, at this rate, it seemed like even if Satoshi did continue training Kendo, there wouldn't be much left for him to teach. Uncle Shanichi, hurry up and become a grade 1 sorcerer already. Make sure to communicate with Suzumashi as much as possible and unlock its Shikai soon. Satoshi and the others escorted Shanichi to the back entrance. For the next period of time, Shanichi would be accompanying a grade 1 sorcerer from the Yaji clan on missions. Young Master Satoshi, rest assured. I'll return successful. Clutching Suzumashi, Shanichi nodded firmly. Then, he turned to Satoru. Young Master Satoru, you need to start making real progress. If, in this next month, your limitless doesn't improve at all, the clan head isn't going to be happy. Shanichi's words made Satoru freeze. Over the past month, he had barely interacted with the clan head. Right now, due to Iiri and Amika's treatment, the clan head was still recovering, and no one had pressured him too much. Because of that, Satoru had been coasting along completely relaxed. Fine, I got it. Satoru nodded. For the next while, I'll focus on training. I won't let myself fall behind Satoshi. Finally, Shanichi turned to Toji. Zenan, I'm counting on you to keep an eye on young Master Satoru and young Master Satoshi. With that, he exchanged a glance with Toji and departed. Even though Satoru and Satoshi were both mentally mature, at the end of the day, they were still just 6-year-old boys. If he wasn't around, he felt more at ease knowing that Toji and Takia were there. After Shanichi left, Satoru suggested going to see the clan head, then left the forge. Toji also said goodbye to Satoshi, heading back to the Zenan clan to search for cursed tools that might suit him. Meanwhile, Satoshi stayed behind in the forge, preparing to watch live battles through Suzumushi's ability. After all, he was only 6 years old, and he had rarely left the Gojo estate. Life was pretty boring. At the same time, rumors began spreading throughout the Gojo family. Word had gotten out that Satoshi had forged a second Zanpakut. However, due to Kumaen's efforts to blur the truth, no one could tell if the rumors were real or not. After all, Satoshi's achievements this past month were insane. He had nearly emptied half of the Gojo clan's cursed tool storage, yet produced no results, leading the clan head to stop supplying him with cursed tools entirely. So how could he have forged a second Zanpakut with no materials? As for Shanichi defeating Yaji-Saman, what did that have to do with some mystical Zanpakut? Wasn't the Gojo family just stronger than the Yaji clan? The rumors about this Zanpakut came from the Kyokushin Ryu dojo. But Satoshi himself had never confirmed anything. It was probably just some overexcited disciples exaggerating things. To many in the Gojo clan, Satoshi's silence meant only one thing. The second Zanpakut didn't exist. Because if it did, wouldn't he be showing it off to the whole family? No one really knew what Satoshi was thinking. Even Kumaen, despite all his efforts to manipulate public opinion, was starting to doubt himself. Had he been wrong? Was Suzumushi really just an ordinary cursed tool, not a true Zanpakut? Chapter 46, The Gojo Family is Just a Toy, Bonus. Did Satoshi really say that? Has he actually forged a second Zanpakut? The elderly man reclined on his chair, gazing at Satoru, who had not appeared for some time, a trace of doubt flickering in his eyes. Yes, clan head. The Zanpakut is called Suzumushi. Satoru's childish voice reached the old man's ears, causing a strong ripple in his heart. However, Suzumushi was taken by Shanichi to carry out a mission, so Satoshi has no way to prove that Suzumushi is indeed a Zanpakut. Satoru explained, worried that the old man would doubt his words. The old man, sensing his emotions, shook his head, looking deeply at Satoru before whispering. Satoru, do you think I'm surprised about the appearance of a second Zanpakut? The old man sighed. It was always within my expectations that Satoshi would be able to forge another Zanpakut. As long as he was given enough materials to experiment and learn from his mistakes, I believed that with his talent, he would eventually establish a systematic forging method. Satoru frowned in confusion. If the clan leader truly believed in Satoshi's abilities, why did he cut off his access to cursed tools? The last time he personally requested materials, the old man had coldly refused. In Satoru's eyes, such actions clearly indicated a lack of trust in Satoshi. Seeing Satoru's black and white thinking, the old man smiled knowingly and said, "That is what actually surprised me. I'm not shocked that Satoshi forged Suzumushi. What surprises me is that he grasped the situation so clearly and formulated such a rational response. It's simple to prove oneself with a Zanpakut. If Satoshi wielded Suzumushi himself, he could have easily demonstrated its power. But the difficult part is this: when you possess undeniable proof, do you let your emotions dictate your actions, or do you make the best strategic decision?" Clearly, Satoshi chose the latter. The old man's eyes shone with relief. Satoshi's decision had not been part of his plans, but it aligned perfectly with his intentions. I could have silenced all opposition in the clan and forced them to continue supplying Satoshi with materials until he successfully forged a second Zanpakut. However, there is an old saying, a flood can be controlled, but the resentment of people cannot. If I had forced the issue, the clan members would only grow more dissatisfied with Satoshi. After all, he had already spent a month proving that forging a Zanpakut isn't a quick process. The success of Suzumushi was beyond my expectations, and that's wonderful. But think about it, Satoru, what if Satoshi had spent another month forging with the materials from the cursed tool vault and still failed? If you were another member of the clan, how would you view him? Satoshi understood this. That's why, after I rejected you, he never sent Shanichi to ask me again. The old man slowly stood up. His frail figure swayed slightly, like a withered leaf that could be swept away by the wind at any moment. Before, I was worried about the Gojo family's future after I passed. Would Kuma-en lead the clan well? Would his stance on Satoshi affect the family's fate? But now, after hearing Satoshi's words, I feel reassured. With effort, the old man walked to Gojo Satoru's side, gently placing a hand on his head. His voice was kind yet firm. Satoru, I still believe that Satoshi is more suited to be the head of the Gojo family than you. Your mind is too straightforward. With your 6 eyes and your exceptional control over cursed energy, you rarely concern yourself with such trivial matters. Your strength alone allows you to bulldoze through most problems. You are strong, I know that. You will only grow stronger, I know that too. But there are many things in this world that cannot be resolved by brute force alone. The Gojo family is not just composed of powerful sorcerers, it also includes many ordinary people. These people rely on us for protection, and in battle, they could even become our greatest weakness. If we abandon them, we might become stronger individually. But then, what would be the point? Sorcerers exist to protect humanity. Satoru listened quietly. He neither nodded nor refuted the old man's words. As the 6 eyes bearer of the Gojo family, he had long pondered the difference between himself and ordinary people. Everyone said he would become the strongest sorcerer. But what did that even mean? Was it to change the world? Protect the clan? Or was it to safeguard all of humanity? Satoru wasn't sure what his future path should be. He had followed Satoshi all this time, claiming he was only interested in the coolness of a Zanpakut. But the truth was, he was drawn to his brother's unwavering determination. Satoshi possessed something he lacked, a clear goal, a relentless drive to achieve it, an unshakable belief in the future. They were twin brothers, sharing the same face. They had lived in the same family for 6 years. So why was there such a vast difference between Satoshi and himself? After a long silence, a faint smile appeared on Satoru's young face as he softly spoke to the old man. Satoshi is indeed more thoughtful than me. Besides, to me, being the head of the Gojo family is nothing more than a constraint. I have no interest in competing with Satoshi for that position. But I have to remind you of one thing. You may want Satoshi to take on the responsibility of leading the family, but have you considered whether he's even willing to accept it? Now, at just 6 years old, he has a Zanpakut, and his kendo is already on par with masters like Shanichi. In the future, he will stand at the pinnacle of the Jujutsu world, just like me. And when that time comes, do you really think he will care about the Gojo family the way you hope he will? I have 6 eyes, and Satoshi has 6 eyes as well. One of us wields cursed energy, the other does not. But in the end, we both see the world the same way. You just told me that sorcerers exist to protect humanity. But what about someone like Satoshi, who has no cursed energy? Does he have an obligation to protect humans? A hint of mischief flickered in Satoru's youthful expression. Neither he nor Satoshi held any real attachment to the Gojo family. What Kuma-en sought so desperately was nothing more than a trivial game piece to them. The Gojo family was just a toy. Satoru was looking forward to seeing how the clan leader would convince Satoshi to accept this toy. After all, unlike him, Satoshi had been scorned by this so-called toy for 6 whole years. Chapter 47, Special Grade Cursed Spirit. This time, the target of the purification mission is in Hokkaido. The 2 of us will work together to carry it out. The association is paying close attention to the sudden surge of cursed spirits in Hokkaido. There have been frequent earthquakes lately, and the number of cursed spirits has increased drastically. Our target is a grade 1 cursed spirit. We need to get there as soon as possible. Yaji Hidesugu glanced at the kendo master beside him with a helpless expression. Although he was a grade 1 sorcerer of the Yaji clan, in a family deeply rooted in kendo tradition, swordsmanship still held the highest authority. As a sorcerer, he had little confidence in evaluating a future kendo master. If not for the clan's orders, he would have refused this task entirely. And now, right after the Yaji clan's kendo master had just lost a challenge, they were assigning Shanichi this mission? It was obvious they were deliberately targeting him. They even chose Hokkaido, far from Tokyo, as the mission site. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the true intent was to remove Shanichi from the Gojo family. Yaji Hidesugu sighed. Even within a smaller family like the Yaji, political schemes were everywhere. In a leading clan like the Gojo family, internal strife was undoubtedly even more intense. As someone born into the Yaji family, who had benefited from it, he had no choice but to follow orders. Hide-sugu, I understand. You don't need to say anything more. I'll have my men conduct this evaluation properly. Let's get this over with as soon as possible. Shanichi's expression was cold. His only priority was finishing the assessment quickly so he could return to the Gojo family and support Satoshi. Even though Satoshi had already shared his thoughts with him, Shanichi couldn't just sit by and watch as Kuma-en abused his power. If he could complete this mission and return to the Gojo family sooner, he would be able to assist Satoshi when the time came. Hearing Shanichi's words, Yaji Hide-sugu simply nodded and led the way toward the cursed spirit's location. Internally, however, he couldn't help but grumble. Master Shanichi, I'm not trying to stall. My mission is to make sure you don't return so quickly. With that thought, Yaji Hide-sugu deliberately led Shanichi on a winding route toward the incident site. Shanichi, naturally, was frustrated by Yaji Hide-sugu's roundabout path, but he couldn't complain outright. After all, Hide-sugu was using the excuse of tracking the cursed spirit's movements. And, admittedly, they had passed several areas where cursed spirits had left traces. In contrast to Shanichi's impatience, Satoshi was quite comfortable. He was currently enjoying the scenery of Hokkaido through his Zanpakut, Suzumashi. He didn't need to be physically present. Everything Suzumashi saw, he saw as well. Satoshi wasn't in a rush for Shanichi to exorcise the cursed spirit. He figured he might as well enjoy the snowy landscapes for a bit longer. Eventually, Yaji Hide-sugu and Shanichi arrived at a secluded villa in a snowy valley. The cursed spirit was clearly hiding inside. Hide-sugu wasn't too concerned. As a grade 1 sorcerer, unless it was a special grade cursed spirit, there was little that could pose a real threat to him. Though the main objective of this mission was to delay Gojo Shanichi, the evaluation itself wouldn't change. Thus, he decided to wait and observe. He planned to let Shanichi handle the exorcism alone first. If things got dangerous, he would step in. The Gojo family had always claimed that Gojo Shanichi had the strength of a grade 1 sorcerer. If that were true, a grade 1 cursed spirit shouldn't be an issue for him. Shanichi had no objections. He wanted to test his own strength anyway, and with Suzumashi at his side, he was confident he could handle himself. However, when Satoshi saw the villa through Suzumashi's vision, his expression shifted. Through his 6 eyes, he could see an incredibly dense concentration of cursed energy emanating from the building even from thousands of miles away. He heard the conversation between Shanichi and Hide-sugu, but he didn't agree with Hide-sugu's judgment. Satoshi had never encountered many cursed spirits before, but whatever was lurking inside that villa, it wasn't normal. Something felt off. For a moment, Satoshi didn't know whether to be amused or concerned about Shanichi's luck. At this point, Shanichi's only hope of survival lay in Suzumashi. If he could just unlock his Shikai. Uncle Shanichi, everything depends on how strong your bond with Suzumashi is. Satoshi silently continued to observe the mission unfold through Suzumashi's vision. Half an hour later, Shanichi and Hide-sugu were running for their lives inside the villa. The 2 grade 1 sorcerers looked absolutely miserable. Hide-sugu, you call this a grade 1 cursed spirit? As he dodged an incoming attack, Shanichi couldn't help but curse in his heart. The monstrous, snow-covered behemoth chasing them was definitely not a grade 1 cursed spirit. Its sheer power left them with no opportunity to counterattack. If not for the sharpness and durability of Suzumashi, Hide-sugu would have already been crippled. In Hokkaido, people both love and fear the snow. This cursed spirit had likely been born from humanity's fear of avalanches. Spirits formed from natural disasters like avalanches, volcanoes, or tsunamis were almost always special grade from the moment of their birth. And their growth potential was terrifyingly high. Either way, this was far beyond what 2 grade 1 sorcerers could handle. Yaji Hide-sugu, his face pale, shook his head. The association's intel was completely wrong this time. Master Shanichi, thank you for saving me earlier, but this time, we're both in serious trouble. He was just here to oversee an assessment, how did he end up encountering a monster like this? Cursed spirits born from natural disasters were some of the most powerful among special grades. If it were just an ordinary special grade cursed spirit, he and Gojo Shanichi might have been able to pull off a desperate, hard-fought victory. But this? This was a force of nature. A cursed spirit formed from an avalanche? If it survives long enough, it could become as powerful as Ryuman Sukuna or Kenjaku. Right now, this was a no-win scenario. They had been ambushed, caught off guard. Hide-Sogu was already injured. Their odds of survival were abysmal. In this situation, could Shanichi awaken his Shikai? Satoshi pondered for a moment. Should he step in? Letting a kendo master like Shanichi die here seemed like a waste. Especially since he had learned so much from him. More importantly, he hadn't extracted any of Shanichi's skills yet. Chapter 48, The Hum. Satoshi, seated in the forge with his eyes closed in meditation, made his decision. Given the current situation, if he continued to wait, Shanichi and Hide-Sogu would likely die on this mission. Without hesitation, Satoshi activated the Zanpakut resonance function and took control of Suzumushi's communication. Gojo Shanichi, can you stop treating me like an ordinary katana? Shanichi, still sprinting for his life, suddenly froze. A voice had just echoed inside his mind. That brief moment of distraction nearly cost him, he felt the cursed spirit rapidly closing the gap. Shanichi, don't lose focus. Hold on, the association should have noticed something is wrong by now. Yaji Hide-Sogu, suppressing the metallic taste of blood rising from his injured organs, shouted a warning. Even though the situation was dire, it still wasn't time to give up completely. Hearing the voice, Shanichi quickly snapped out of his daze and continued running. He had no idea where the voice had come from. However, after recalling the words just spoken, a bold guess formed in his mind. Could it be? Was it Suzumushi? Is that you, Suzumushi? Of course, it's me. Honestly, how embarrassing. Gojo Shanichi, do you really want to achieve Shikai and counterattack? Think carefully, do you truly wish to use me? Satoshi guided Shanichi, reminding him that he needed to deepen his connection with Suzumushi. Without that bond, the Zanpakut would never fully respond to him. Amid the chaos, Shanichi finally remembered he still had his greatest trump card. I haven't achieved Shikai with Suzumushi yet. If I can unlock its initial release, maybe I can actually defeat this special grade cursed spirit. Gripping Suzumushi's hilt tightly, Gojo Shanichi forced himself to calm down. But, how do I unlock Shikai? When I fought against Sodi no Shirayuki before, I didn't feel any signs of an awakening. But now, Suzumushi is reaching out to me. Does this mean I've already touched the threshold of enlightenment? Shanichi had no idea that the voice came from Satoshi. However, by sheer coincidence, he believed that Suzumushi itself was guiding him. That realization filled him with newfound confidence. Suzumushi! 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 Shanichi began calling Suzumushi's name repeatedly, using the simplest yet most direct method to awaken its true power. And in response to his will, something changed. A powerful resonance surged from Suzumushi, pulsing through his entire being. It was as if countless crickets had suddenly awakened from slumber, their cries forming a chorus that echoed through his soul. For the first time, Gojo Shanichi felt truly connected to his Zanpakut. For the first time, he felt Suzumushi's name responding to him. For the first time, the act of calling its name felt right. Cry, Suzumushi! The words left his lips instinctively. And at that moment his Zanpakut transformed. Although the changes weren't as dramatic as Sodi no Shirayuki's, it was undeniably different from before. Feeling Suzumushi's response, Shanichi knew this was Shikai. Suddenly, two techniques surfaced in his mind. Suzumushi is Hiki, Kaimei, cricket first movement, resonating echo, and Suzumushi Nishiki, Benahik, cricket second movement, crimson flying locusts. Understanding the techniques of Suzumushi's Shikai, Gojo Shanichi smiled. In that instant he stopped running. He turned to face the cursed spirit. Master Shanichi! Don't give up! The association's support is on the way. Hide-Sogu's face twisted in shock. What the hell was Gojo Shanichi thinking? He had already warned him once, which he considered repayment for the life-saving favor earlier. If Gojo Shanichi wanted to die here, so be it. He wasn't going to risk himself any further. Frustrated, Hide-Sogu glanced at Gojo Shanichi one last time. And then, his gaze was instantly drawn to the Zanpakut in Shanichi's hands. What kind of weapon is that? Has Master Shanichi always had such a blade? But even if it's a new cursed tool, it shouldn't be able to do anything against a special grade cursed spirit. Forget it. I just want to make it out of here alive. Just as Hide-Sogu steeled himself to escape, an unprecedented force suddenly erupted from Gojo Shanichi's blade. And then he heard it. A low, rhythmic hum. Suzumashi is Hiki, Kaimei, cricket first movement, resonating echo, dot. As Gojo Shanichi spoke, Suzumashi vibrated violently, emitting a deep, resonant buzzing sound. Like the chorus of countless crickets awakening at once. Then, a grey ripple expanded outward from Suzumashi, sweeping toward the special grade cursed spirit. Hidetsugu's body went rigid. Because the cursed spirit, the same one that had relentlessly pursued them, suddenly stopped. It just stood there. A special grade cursed spirit was being controlled by a weapon. How is this possible? No matter how strong a cursed tool is, it still depends on who wields it. Could it be? Gojo Shunichi is far stronger than a grade 1 sorcerer. That shouldn't be possible. If he was this powerful, we wouldn't have struggled so badly earlier. Hidetsugu's mind was in turmoil, his eyes filled with disbelief as he stared at Shunichi. But for now, at least for now, they could breathe. It seemed that this mysterious cursed weapon could help them escape. However, just as Hidetsugu cautiously approached Shunichi, something changed. The special grade cursed spirit suddenly snapped out of its trance. Its blood-red eyes burned with unrestrained fury. The sheer pressure radiating from it made Hidetsugu's heart sink. Damn it! The effect only lasted a few seconds. That's nowhere near enough against a monster like this. He clenched his jaw. This is bad. This time, I'm going to die alongside Shunichi. Well, at least the Yaji clan will consider it an honor to have perished beside a kendo master. Seimon, once Shunichi dies, you should be able to get promoted. Right? As death loomed, Hidetsugu's mind spiraled into absurd thoughts. His legacy, his place in history, whether the patriarch would add his name to the family shrine. But no matter what he thought, nothing changed the harsh reality before him. He was standing far too close to a special grade cursed spirit. And right now, he couldn't think of any way out. Chapter 49, Suzumashi Nishiki, Benahik. Through Suzumashi's perspective, Satoshi could feel the true power of its Shikai. As the Zanpakut of Tsunkan name, the former 9th Division captain of the Godi I-13, Suzumashi's abilities were a perfect match for a blind soul reaper. However, for Shunichi, its techniques were somewhat restrictive. Still, even though the avalanche cursed spirit had regained its senses, Satoshi wasn't worried about Shanichi's safety. After all, aside from the Suzumashi's Hiki, Kaimei, Suzumashi's Shikai had a second ability. While it might not have stood out much in the Bleach universe, it was still a technique wielded by a captain-class Soul Reaper. Suzumashi Nishiki, Benahik should be enough to get Shunichi out of trouble. As Satoshi pondered the next move, Shunichi spoke again. Suzumashi Nishiki, Benahik, cricket second movement, crimson flying locusts. The moment his words fell, Hidetsugu watched in shock as the Zanpakut in Gojo Shunichi's hand transformed. In an instant, it split apart into countless razor-sharp blades, their pointed tips gleaming like insect mandibles, raining down from above. The scene resembled a locust swarm, their ceaseless slashes tearing into the special grade cursed spirit's body. Deep gashes formed in rapid succession, as streams of dark purple blood sprayed from the wounds. In mere seconds, the massive cursed spirit appeared as if it had been devoured by an actual swarm of locusts. Ruwa-ar. A howl of agony tore from the cursed spirit's mouth. Then, Hidetsugu witnessed something unexpected. Panic. The special grade cursed spirit was afraid. Shunichi. It's trying to escape. Hidetsugu immediately realized the cursed spirit's intent. The moment he shouted, the snow monster-like cursed spirit turned, leaped away, shattered through the villa's wall, and vanished into the vast blizzard. The purple blood trailing behind it was swiftly buried beneath the snow. Hidetsugu sighed in regret. He wanted to scold Gojo Shunichi for letting it escape. However, when he saw Shunichi collapse to the ground, he understood. Those two consecutive techniques had completely drained him. We survived. With an exhausted breath, Hidetsugu finally relaxed. And as he did, his vision darkened. The injuries he had forcefully suppressed surged up once more, making his entire body ache in agony. Meanwhile, back at the Gojo family residence, Satoshi nodded to himself. Suzumashi's power is stronger than expected. Even though Crimson Flying Locusts wasn't able to kill the special grade cursed spirit, it still proved how formidable Suzumashi's Shikai was. After all, special grade cursed spirits represented the pinnacle of combat power in Jujutsu Kaisen. Not to mention, This snow monster type cursed spirit wasn't just any special grade. It was a high-tier special grade threat. Not everyone could be like Satoru, capable of spotting a single weakness and erasing a special grade cursed spirit in an instant. Well, I should mark this special grade cursed spirit. If I ever get the chance to meet Gojo Satoru, I can introduce him to a new business opportunity. After all, finding special grade cursed spirits isn't easy. Hokkaido, hey? I'll keep that in mind. Unlike others, who saw special grade cursed spirits as a death sentence, Satoshi saw them as potential assets. 1 kilometer away from the villa, the association's auxiliary supervisor suddenly arrived on the scene. Feeling the lingering presence of the cursed spirit in the distance, Nishinami Yashuji's face turned pale with fear. He never expected a special grade cursed spirit to appear in a promotion assessment mission. The association's intel was completely wrong. Originally, they believed that Gojo Shanichi and Hide Sugu would be more than capable of exorcising a grade 1 cursed spirit. But then, the cursed energy signature at the mission site changed suddenly. By the time Shuji realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Now, there's no trace of the special grade cursed spirit inside the villa. Does this mean it killed both of the grade 1 sorcerers and then escaped? Shuji didn't even dare to entertain the thought. This mission wasn't a regular exorcism task. The Yaji clan and the Gojo family were both renowned sorcerer families. The Gojo family was one of the 3 great families, and Shanichi was a kendo master, a highly valued figure in the clan. Although the Yaji family wasn't as powerful, that only made Yaji Hide Sugu, a grade 1 sorcerer, even more crucial to them. After all, Yaji was the strongest sorcerer in the Yaji family. Now, if both of them were dead, the Yaji clan and the Gojo family would never let this go. Shuji shuddered. He could already see his future. The association would push all the blame onto him. This isn't my fault. Who could have expected a special grade cursed spirit to appear? Master Shanichi. Hide Sugu. I really didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know there would be a special grade cursed spirit here. Please, don't come back to haunt me. This isn't my fault. Muttering to himself in utter despair, Shuji hesitantly stepped into the damaged villa. With each step, his expression darkened. The smell of blood in the air was thick. He didn't dare move any further. He was terrified of what he might see. Were their bodies torn apart? Were their corpses completely unrecognizable? Just as he was about to turn away, a weak yet determined voice reached his ears. If you keep wasting time, Hide Sugu is going to die. Shuji's entire body froze. He immediately recognized the voice. Master Gojo Shunichi. You're still alive. He had spoken without thinking, then quickly covered his mouth. But then, does this mean Hide Sugu is alive too? No way. Could it be that this wasn't a special grade cursed spirit after all? Did the association make a mistake in its assessment? How are they still alive? Why does it sound like you really wanted me dead? Shanichi's voice was filled with cold sarcasm. The association made a massive mistake this time. They sent me, a mere grade 2 sorcerer, to exorcise a special grade cursed spirit. That's insane. If I didn't have the Zanpakut forged by young Master Satoshi, I'd be dead right now. I won't let this slide so easily. Though frustrated with the association, Shunichi purposely emphasized that his survival was thanks to his Zanpakut. With both Yaji and Shuji as witnesses, Suzumashi was bound to make waves in the Jujutsu world. This should count as another form of support for young Master Satoshi. Chapter 50, The Rise of the Zanpakut, Bonus. During the Borwar's battle, the corresponding experience is converted, Kendo experience +1. During the Borwar's battle, the corresponding experience is converted, Free experience +1. During the Borwar's battle, the corresponding experience is converted, Kendo experience +1. At the Gojo family mansion, Satoshi sat comfortably, feeling quite pleased as he gained free experience points from Shanichi's battle. Although he hadn't personally participated in the mission, there was no doubt that his efforts had played a crucial role in Gojo Shanichi's survival. The increase in Kendo experience signified that his potential in swordsmanship was still far from reaching its limit. The increase in Hakuda experience meant he was getting closer and closer to unlocking Ho. After all, getting free power UPS without doing anything was one of life's greatest joys, wasn't it? Satoshi had already anticipated Shanichi's decision to spread the word about Suzumashi. But he didn't mind at all. Just as he had stated before, the Gojo family was nothing more than a toy in the hands of his future self and Satoru. Satoru, who saw himself as the strongest, would never concern himself with such trivial matters. And as someone who possessed the power of death, Satoshi had no intention of worrying about the future development of the Gojo family. If the clan could offer strong support, then perhaps, out of sentiment, he might help maintain its prosperity. But if the Gojo family turned out to be short-sighted fools, then he wouldn't hesitate to let this decaying house crumble into dust. For Satoshi, the most important thing right now was simple: getting stronger. Zanpakut, Zanjutsu, Hakuta, Ho, and Kid. Heavenly restriction. These were the three pillars upon which his strength relied. By continuously forging Zanpakut, and lending them out, he could ensure his power would keep growing. By training in Zanjutsu, Hakuta, and Ho, he could also gain free experience whenever someone wielded his creations in battle. At this rate, it wasn't impossible for him to one day become a 4-in-1 warrior like Captain Commander Yamamoto Genrisai Shigakuni. As for the heavenly restriction, that would only grow stronger over time, so there was no need to rush. In summary, the only thing Satoshi truly lacked right now was time. If he could survive long enough to witness the era when Satoru is split in two, then even if he were not invincible, he would at least be unstoppable. Time is something no one can control. Right now, the only thing I can master is Zanpakut forging. If I forge enough Zanpakut, I can exchange them for time. The sooner I acquire overwhelming strength, the safer my future will be. The Gojo family. Did you hear? Master Shanichi has been promoted to grade 1 sorcerer. That was expected, wasn't it? Why make a big deal out of it? No, you don't understand. Master Shanichi encountered a special grade cursed spirit. He and the Yaji family's grade 1 sorcerer nearly died. What? A special grade? Even 2 grade 1 sorcerers couldn't handle it. Then, how did Master Shanichi survive? That's the shocking part. Listen, I heard from the association that Master Shanichi defeated the special grade cursed spirit using a Zanpakut forged by young Master Gojo Satoshi. Wait, that sword is really a Zanpakut. A weapon that allowed a grade 1 sorcerer to survive against a special grade. Master Satoshi is terrifying. No wonder Master Yaji Saman lost so miserably in that duel. Turns out, Master Shanichi was using a Zanpakut all along. Damn, I wish I had one too. Do you think we have a chance of getting a Zanpakut from Master Satoshi? Master Shanichi is so lucky. I heard young Master Satoshi has forged 2 Zanpakut so far, his own Sodi no Shirayuki, and the Suzumashi that Master Shanichi wields. I'm so jealous. And to think that Master Shanichi used to have bad blood with young Master Satoshi, but in the end, young Master Satoshi still forged him a Zanpakut. Isn't that unbelievably generous? Right? After all, young Master Satoshi is a 6-eyes wielder of the Gojo family, just like young Master Satoru. That whole twin curse theory Elder Kuma-en mentioned before. Yeah, complete nonsense. Exactly. How could young Master Satoshi be a curse upon the Gojo family if he's the one creating divine weapons like the Zanpakut? He, just like young Master Satoru, is the future of our clan. As the announcement of Shanichi's promotion spread, so too did the details of the mission itself. Despite Kuma-en's attempts to suppress the information, he couldn't override the association's official report. The details of Shanichi's battle, the special grade cursed spirit, and the role of Suzumashi were now public knowledge. The sorcerer world had just received its first proper introduction to a Zanpakut. At first, the Jujutsu Association was hesitant about how to frame the report. However, with Shanichi's incredible performance, and Hidesuga's silent approval, the details of the mission ultimately became a testament to Suzumashi's power. This was the moment the Zanpakut made its mark on the world. Iiri household. At the Iiri residence, Iiri Inamichi read over the association's latest report, his expression serious. Previously, only a handful of families were aware of Satoshi's ability to forge Zanpakut. But now? This mission had changed everything. From this point forward, the entire Jujutsu world would come to know the name Zanpakut. Shoko, did you hear? Another grade 1 sorcerer has emerged from the Gojo family. Shoko, who had been casually snacking, looked up in confusion. Hey? What's so special about that? Inamichi remained silent for a moment. The Gojo family had already extended an invitation before. But now, after seeing the full potential of Satoshi, he was hesitant. His abilities were far greater than just forging a single Zanpakut. If he could continuously create different types, perhaps, it was time to seriously consider the Gojo family's offer. Still deep in thought, Inamichi slid the association's newspaper across the table, pointing to one particular word. Zanpakut. Wait. Satoshi actually forged a second Sodi no Shirayuki. Shoko's eyes widened in shock. She still vividly remembered him from that gathering. She had assumed they wouldn't cross paths again anytime soon. But now, she was reading about his Zanpakut in the newspaper. Even though Satoshi's name wasn't explicitly mentioned, everyone who knew the truth understood. This entire article was praising Gojo Satoshi. Chapter 51, The Sorcery World in Shock. The second Sodi no Shirayuki? No, that's not right. Hearing his daughter mention Sodi no Shirayuki, Inamichi shook his head. He could tell that Shoko hadn't read the full article, so he simply pointed to another section of the newspaper. This Zanpakut is called Suzumushi. It's completely different from Sodi no Shirayuki. This means that Satoshi might truly be able to forge cursed tools with different abilities. Inamichi looked at Shoko and sighed. Shoko, after Satoshi forges his third Zanpakut, you should start visiting the Gojo family more often. 3 Zanpakut. The first time he forged Sodi no Shirayuki, it could have been a fluke. The second time he forged Suzumushi, maybe it was luck. But if Satoshi successfully forges a third Zanpakut, then, compared to Satoshi, even someone like Shoko, who possessed reverse curse technique, might not be so special anymore. Ah? Oh, okay, father. I'll visit the Gojo family more often. At her age, Shoko had no clue what her father was thinking. The first thing that came to mind wasn't political alliances. It was the thought of delicious snacks at the Gojo estate. Only after that did she remember the 2 Six Eyes friends she had made. To a child, even the legendary Six Eyes, seen only once in a century, was less important than good food. Okotsu family. Looks like Satoshi is making headlines again. For now, this fake Six Eyes might actually be more influential than the Six Eyes child himself. Yuto scanned the newspaper in his hands, a faint smile playing at his lips. Gojo Satoru and Gojo Satoshi. Would he be able to compete with them in the future? Yuto stretched out his right hand, letting materialized cursed energy swirl in his palm. He could clearly feel it now, the overwhelming cursed energy in his body. He refused to believe he would remain weaker than Satoshi or Satoru in the future. But he also realized, he needed to hurry up. After all, he was older than both of the Gojo family's Six Eyes twins. If he let himself be overtaken, it would be beyond humiliating. But about this Zanpakut. Do you think I could get one too? We're all friends now, right? Basking under the sun, Yuto muttered to himself, anticipation gleaming in his eyes. Zenan clan estate. Inside the Zenan family hall, the clan head sat high on his seat, looking down at the gathered Zenan clan members. Kneeling before him were Zenan Aji and Zenan Naobito, listening intently. You've all seen the newspaper, haven't you? His voice was hoarse, filled with undisguised displeasure. Yes, father. Zenan Aji and Zenan Naobito nodded, their expressions serious. They already knew why the head of the Zenan family had summoned them today. When I first heard that Gojo Satoshi was heavenly restriction bound, a Six Eyes user without cursed energy, I thought the heavens had finally shown mercy. I thought we had been spared from a future ruled by 2 Six Eyes sorcerers. But now I see that the heavens still favor the Gojo family. Even without cursed energy, Gojo Satoshi is proving to be an unprecedented anomaly. The clan head's gaze darkened. We must obtain one of these Zanpakut. I refuse to believe that only Gojo Satoshi can forge such weapons. He is just a 6-year-old child. Even with the Six Eyes, there's no way he could possess such an outrageous talent. This ability of his, it should not exist. The Six Eyes and Limitless. Fine. Those are well-documented abilities of the Gojo family. But a Zanpakut. Something that has never existed in the history of sorcerers. This is no mere cursed tool. If all of this is true, then Gojo Satoshi's strategic value may actually exceed Gojo Satoru's. Zenan Aji and Zenan Naobito remained silent, keeping their heads lowered. Zenan Aji, in particular, was gritting his teeth. He had been part of the delegation that previously visited the Gojo family. Back then, he had dismissed Gojo Satoshi outright. Like most of the Zenan clan, he had blind faith in the cursed energy doctrine, the belief that only those with immense cursed energy could stand at the top. He had seen Gojo Satoshi with his own eyes. Yet, even now, he struggled to accept the reality before him. Meanwhile, Zenan Naobito carefully analyzed the situation. He knew the other major sorcerer families wouldn't care much about Gojo Shinichi's promotion. What they cared about was Zanpakut, and the one who created them. After a brief silence, the clan head turned his gaze back to his sons. Aji, Naobito. You must expand your vision. Look at this not just as a single event but from the perspective of our family's future. You two are the future leaders of the Zenan clan. You must take our rivalry with the Gojo family and the Kumo family seriously. The Kumo family is already in decline. Blood manipulation is likely to be lost within a generation. There's no need to waste too much effort on them. But the Gojo family. In this generation, the Gojo family has produced a six-eyes limitless user Gojo Satoru. With him alone, they've solidified their position as the strongest among the three great families. But Gojo Satoru is just one man. For a family to remain dominant, they must cultivate multiple elites. And now, they have Gojo Satoshi. The clan head's voice was cold and decisive. Which means the Zenan family must act now. After a moment of silence, he shifted his gaze toward Zenan Aji. Aji. You met Gojo Satoshi in person. Tell me your thoughts. Naobito, you should listen carefully. Aji's judgment plays a key role in our decision-making. Zenan Aji flinched slightly. His father had never spoken about Gojo Satoshi with such seriousness before. He had always assumed the clan head shared his beliefs that Gojo Satoshi, being cursed energy deficient, was not worth their concern. Now, he wasn't so sure. Seeing Aji hesitate, the clan head let out a cold chuckle. Look at him, Naobito. This is the pride of the Zenan family, so arrogant that he refuses to acknowledge a potential threat. He still clings to the belief that my views should match his own. Zenan Aji's expression twisted in shame. That's not what I meant, father. But Gojo Satoshi is a false six-eyes user. He has no cursed energy, just like Toji. Why should we concern ourselves with him? The clan head ignored him and turned to Zenan Naobito. Naobito, you've never met him, but you know the six eyes well. What do you think? Zenan Naobito frowned. Logically speaking, a heavenly restriction-bound six-eyes user should be no different from Toji. However, the six eyes are an abnormality. Chapter 52, The Zenan Clan's Decision, Bonus. I even suspect that Gojo Satoshi's ability to forge the cursed tool known as Zanpakut is directly tied to the six eyes he possesses. Within the Gojo family, they call his six eyes fake, but as twins, there should be no fundamental difference between the two. If that's the case, then Gojo Satoshi's six eyes must provide him with many unique abilities. We cannot simply ignore him because of his lack of cursed energy. Naobito voiced his thoughts, and the clan head subconsciously nodded in approval. This scene did not go unnoticed by Aji, whose heart filled with resentment. The entire family followed this ideology, he had merely upheld family tradition. So why was his viewpoint rejected, while Naobito's was accepted? Wasn't it clear that the clan head favored Naobito as the next heir? But at this moment, neither the Zenan clan head nor Naobito had time to concern themselves with Aji's inner turmoil. Naobito, continue speaking. The clan head raised his head slightly, motioning for Naobito to go on. Yes, sir. Naobito nodded. If we want to obtain a Zanpakut, I do have a way. Sir, you should be aware that Toji is currently very close to Gojo Satoshi. Through him, we can establish contact. As fellow heavenly restriction bearers, Toji and Satoshi should have much in common. In fact, I've learned that the real reason Gojo Satoshi challenged Shinsuke to a duel wasn't because of personal grievance but because of Toji. At that gathering at the Gojo family estate, it was Satoshi who sought out Toji first. So, Naobito's plan was logical and feasible. The clan head's gaze deepened, and a trace of approval flickered in his eyes. I never expected that a failure like Toji would end up being useful after all. The clan head let out a low sigh before turning to Zenan Aji. Shinsuke lost to Satoshi. That means the Zanpakut's ability must be similar to a sorcerer's curse technique. With Shinsuke's pride, he probably won't be able to accept it. Keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't develop a mental breakdown over this. With that, the clan head leaned back in his rocking chair and whispered. Naobito, I'm putting you in charge of obtaining a Zanpakut. Do whatever it takes. We cannot allow the Gojo family to monopolize this. Zenan Aji and Zenan Naobito lowered their heads in acknowledgement. Naobito seemed like he wanted to say something but stopped when he saw the clan head close his eyes, signaling the conversation was over. Are we really going to ignore Toji? Naobito had heard about the battle between Toji and Satoshi through various sources. To him, Toji, as a heavenly restriction bearer, might not be as worthless as everyone believed. There had to be something unique about him. Otherwise, why would Satoshi take an interest? Birds of a feather flock together. Naobito did not believe that Satoshi had sought Toji simply because they shared the same heavenly restriction condition. But, the clan head was already tired. This issue would have to wait. Elsewhere in the Zenan estate. Inside his private quarters, Zenan Shinsuke clutched the newspaper, his expression twisted in frustration. Like the clan head, Aji, and Naobito, he didn't pay much attention to the promotion of Gojo Shanichi. His focus was on one thing only. The Zanpakut mentioned in the report. And the one who forged it. Gojo Satoshi. Damn it. Gojo Satoshi actually forged another Zanpakut. Why? Aren't you just a failure with no cursed energy? Do you think you're that powerful just because you have the same 6 eyes as Gojo Satoru? Shinsuke's grip tightened around the katana in his hand, his knuckles turning white. He couldn't forget it. That moment when Sodi no Shirayuki froze him completely. His body had locked up, while everyone else moved freely. He had been completely helpless. If Zenan Aji hadn't intervened, he would have died at the hands of a 6-year-old child. Letting out a sharp breath, Shinsuke swung his katana forcefully, trying to suppress his emotions. Outside the window, snowflakes drifted down, glistening in the fading light. And in a low voice, he muttered. Zanpakut. If I had a Zanpakut, would I be stronger? Then I'd finally be qualified to investigate my father's death, right? Gojo clan estate. Meanwhile, at the Gojo estate, Kuma-en sat with a furrowed brow, reading the latest news. The promotion mission he had orchestrated. A mission meant to quietly remove Shanichi from the equation. Had instead nearly cost the lives of both Shanichi and Hide-Sugu. While he resented Shinika's opposition to his faction, he had never intended to kill him outright. This fool! Why does he insist on opposing me? Why did he publicize the existence of Suzumushi and its Zanpakut abilities? In his mind, does the internal power struggle within the Gojo family matter more than protecting Gojo Satoshi's secret? Kuma-en's expression darkened. He knew. This news had only spread because Shanichi had deliberately leaked it. His once loyal subordinate had sided with the Jujutsu Sorcerers Association in an effort to elevate Gojo Satoshi's status. But did this fool even realize the consequences of his actions? Now, every major sorcerer family knew the truth. Everyone knew that Satoshi was the forger of Zanpakut. That he had created an entirely new class of cursed tools. In doing so, Satoshi had gone from being a mere outcast to a major threat in the eyes of rival clans. This is too reckless. Kuma-en shook his head. Over the past few days, he had successfully consolidated much of the authority that the Gojo clan head had relinquished. At this point, even with the news of Suzumushi spreading, it wouldn't change the larger power dynamics. Satoshi. Zanpakut. 6 eyes. The Gojo family's future still requires Satoshi's abilities. Since Shanichi wanted to change Satoshi's status, then fine. Let him. Chapter 53, Undercurrent of the Jujutsu Blacksmith Association, Bonus. On the other side, in the master bedroom of the Gojo clan. At this moment, the elderly patriarch was leisurely reading a newspaper, his expression one of deep satisfaction. The headlines announced that Shanichi had successfully been promoted to a Grade 1 sorcerer, a piece of news that pleased him greatly. However, what intrigued him even more was Shinika's apparent support for Satoshi. To the old man, this was a surprising turn of events. After all, Shanichi was once a staunch member of the Twin Curse faction, a group that had clashed with Satoshi over the handling of cursed tools. Satoshi, you can't hide anymore, even if you wanted to. Once Shanichi reveals your abilities, that carefree life of yours will be over. Since Kuma-en has already begun taking over the clan's affairs, that should align with your wishes. I just wonder, when will Kuma-en realize that everything he's doing is, in the end, simply paving the way for you? A smile spread across the old man's wrinkled face, his skin marked with the passage of time. Even though Inamichi had treated him, his lifespan was reaching its limit. He likely wouldn't survive past the end of the year. But despite that, he felt at peace. He had discovered Satoshi, someone who could truly carry the future of the Gojo clan. He believed that after his passing, under the combined leadership of Satoru and Satoshi, the clan would thrive even more than before. Satoshi, I look forward to seeing just how far you'll go. Jujutsu Blacksmith Association. Within the association headquarters, two renowned cursed tool masters, Hirei Takeda and Gojo Yasuke, exchanged solemn glances before handing a newspaper to Kamoshin, the Grand Master standing beside them. President, Gojo Satoshi has successfully forged a second Zanpakut. Both of them wore bitter expressions. As veterans in the art of crafting cursed tools, neither had expected that in their 60s and 70s, they would be surpassed by a mere 6-year-old child. At this rate, Satoshi was fully qualified to be recognized as a master of cursed tools, especially with the creation of these two unique Zanpakut. However, was it truly a good thing for the Jujutsu Blacksmith Association to have such a young master among them? Holding the newspaper, Kamoshin remained silent. His hand tightened slightly, veins subtly bulging. Though his face displayed a composed expression, any keen observer could see the underlying excitement in his eyes. After a moment, Kamoshin finally spoke. We should celebrate. With Gojo Shanichi's promotion, the entire Jujutsu world will have no choice but to pay greater attention to cursed tools. His words sent shockwaves through the room. Hirei Takeda and Gojo Yasuke stared at him in disbelief. Wait, what's going on? The president is actually congratulating Gojo Satoshi? Wasn't he always against Zanpakut before? Does this mean that our association is considering bringing Gojo Satoshi into our ranks? Could we even learn the forging methods behind Zanpakut? If Gojo Satoshi is willing to share his forging techniques, there's no reason he can't officially join the Jujutsu Blacksmith Association. Given the Kamo clan's influence, this shouldn't be too difficult, right? Since he's forging cursed tools, isn't it only natural for him to contribute to the association? The subtle shift in Kamoshin's stance immediately sparked different thoughts among the association members. After all, the Gojo clan was not an opponent to be taken lightly. If the Jujutsu Blacksmith Association openly antagonized Satoshi, the outcome could be disastrous. However, beneath his composed exterior, Kamoshin's mind was clouded with darkness. The Kamo clan, already infamous for producing some of history's most notorious sorcerers, was considered the most morally bankrupt family in the Jujutsu world. And now, as the president of the Jujutsu Blacksmith Association, what reason did he have to stray from that reputation? The Kamo clan thrived on blood and ambition. Only through sacrifice could true progress be achieved. A sharp glint flickered in Kamoshin's eyes. If Gojo Satoshi could truly normalize Zanpakut as cursed tools, the entire field of cursed tool craftsmanship would be turned on its head. And as the undisputed authority in the field, how could he, Kamoshin, allow a mere 6-year-old to challenge him? Gojo Clan Forge Room. Satoshi. Shanichi has officially been promoted to a Grade 1 sorcerer. Excitedly, Satoru rushed into the forge, eager to share the news with Gojo Satoshi. Though Shanichi was no longer Satoru's personal bodyguard, Satoru was genuinely happy for his achievement. However, what puzzled him was how calm Satoshi remained, as if he had expected this outcome all along. Wait, is Satoshi really that confident in his Zanpakut? Does he truly believe that Shanichi's promotion was guaranteed because of Suzumashi? Well, that makes sense. Suzumashi is incredibly powerful. It's only natural for Satoshi to be sure of his success. Seeing Satoshi's composed demeanor, Satoru found it strangely cool. What he didn't know, however, was that Satoshi's indifference had nothing to do with confidence. Rather, he simply already knew the result. After all, he had personally participated in Shanichi's promotion test, witnessing firsthand how Suzumashi helped him repel a special grade cursed spirit, securing his advancement. Then, let's wait for Uncle Shanichi to return. Satoshi said casually before glancing at Satoru. Actually, Satoru, come with me to the cursed tool storage room. Let's see if there are any materials suitable for forging a new cursed tool. Now that Suzumashi's existence had been revealed, Satoshi figured he wouldn't encounter as many obstacles when searching for materials this time. Oh? Satoshi, it looks like you've already got something in mind. A mischievous glint appeared in Satoru's eyes as he perked up. Next, Satoshi should be helping me forge my own Zanpakut, right? I can't wait. Zanpakut. Zanpakut. I want a Zanpakut like Sodi no Shirayuki. Humming happily to himself, Satoru was already daydreaming about how cool his future Zanpakut would be. Meanwhile, Satoshi, standing beside him, could only sigh. Satoru hadn't even obtained a Zanpakut yet, what was he so excited about? Wasn't this just putting unnecessary pressure on him? To forge a suitable Zanpakut, he needed to find a cursed tool compatible with its abilities first. Satoru, whether or not your Zanpakut becomes a reality depends entirely on the cursed tools available in the storage room. Ignoring Satoru's overenthusiastic rambling, Satoshi turned and left the forge, Sodi no Shirayuki in hand. Noticing Satoshi's departure, Satoru quickly followed. He wanted to witness the birth of his own Zanpakut, starting with the selection of a cursed tool. Chapter 54, Toji, this is the mission assigned to you by the family. On the way to the cursed tool storage room, Satoshi could clearly sense the subtle shift in the way his fellow clan members looked at him. In the past, their gazes had been filled with nothing but indifference. But today, beneath that cold exterior, a trace of doubt had begun to emerge. Clearly, news about Suzumashi had already spread throughout the clan. Some people even took the initiative to step aside when they saw him passing. However, many still harbored skepticism. After all, a 6-year-old child had managed to forge a Zanpakut after a month of repeated failures, yet no special rumors had surfaced regarding the forging process. It all seemed a little too convenient. That said, this time, no one attempted to stop Satoshi and Satoru from entering the storage room. At this moment, every single member of the Gojo clan wanted to know one thing: could Satoshi forge another Zanpakut? Again and again. If Satoshi succeeded in forging a third Zanpakut, it would prove beyond doubt that his abilities were not just a stroke of luck. It would mean that Satoshi truly possessed the power to change the entire Gojo clan. Meanwhile, Zenan clan. In a quiet room deep within the Zenan estate, Toji sat lazily, his eyes filled with boredom as he stared at his unexpected visitor Zenan Naobito. He had little interest in the higher UPS of the Zenan clan. To Toji, this so-called family meant nothing. Yet here stood Naobito, a man ranked among the top 3 most powerful figures in the clan. And yet, Toji didn't care. His only concern was whether the Zenan clan's cursed tool vault contained anything useful for Satoshi. Naobito, however, had come for a different reason. Toji, I want to meet Gojo Satoshi through you. At the mention of that name, Toji, who had been about to leave, suddenly stopped. He narrowed his eyes, turning to stare at Naobito, and waited for him to continue. The Zenan clan is finally making their move on Satoshi? So they've heard about Suzumashi. Toji had no idea what had happened with Shanichi. Without cursed energy, he wasn't privy to the newspapers distributed among sorcerers. However, based on Naobito's sudden interest in Satoshi, it wasn't hard to put the pieces together. Would the Zenan clan bother with someone who had no cursed energy? Of course not. The only thing they would care about was Satoshi's ability to forge Zanpakut. I heard you've been quite close to young Master Satoshi of the Gojo clan lately. Naobitsu's voice was calm as he stepped into Toji's residence, casually handing him a copy of the association's newspaper. Toji smirked, taking the newspaper with a lazy motion. Yeah, I suppose you could say that. After glancing at the headlines, Toji's suspicions were confirmed. The article detailed the power of Suzumashi but conveniently omitted any mention of its forger. He exhaled slowly, his tone carrying an unmistakable edge of mockery. After all, we're just 2 useless people with no cursed energy. It's only natural that we'd get along. His words were laced with sarcasm, but Naobito didn't react. Instead, he nodded. Zanpakut is a type of cursed tool unlike anything that has ever existed before. If such tools can be mass-produced, they will completely revolutionize the world of cursed tools. The head of the clan has taken great interest in this matter. As have I. That's why I'm here to confirm something. Tell me, Toji, did Gojo Satoshi really forge a second Zanpakut? Naobitsu's gaze was sharp as he locked eyes with Toji. While everyone suspected Satoshi was the forger, the newspaper never explicitly stated it. Before taking any further action, the Zenan clan needed absolute confirmation. They needed Toji to verify the truth. Without hesitation, Toji answered. Suzumashi was indeed forged by Gojo Satoshi. I watched the entire process myself. Naobi's expression didn't change, but his grip on his sleeve tightened slightly. Then, if the Zenan clan is planning to act, they should do it soon, Toji added nonchalantly. Gojo Satoshi isn't just some throwaway kid. If both Satoshi and Satoru reach their full potential, the Zenan clan will be crushed. With the current state of this family, I don't see any way you could compete with the Gojo clan. Toji stretched lazily, his words carrying a carefree ruthlessness as he casually predicted the downfall of the Zenan clan right in front of one of its top leaders. What surprised him, however, was that Naobito did not refute him. Instead, he fell into deep thought. After a long pause, Naobito sighed. Even so, as you just said, there is no one in the younger generation of the Zenan clan who can rival the Six Eyes. Toji raised an eyebrow. The Zenan clan, actually admitting their inferior? The arrogance of the Zenan family was legendary. For them to acknowledge their weakness so openly. That alone was shocking. Sensing Toji's skepticism, Naobito suddenly smirked. Perhaps the others in the family cannot compete with Gojo Satoru, but what about you, Toji? The room fell silent. For a moment, the tension in the air was suffocating. A few seconds later, Toji chuckled. Me? He tapped the scar at the corner of his mouth, his amusement barely concealed. I'm just a good-for-nothing without cursed energy. But inwardly, he was intrigued. Because ever since Gojo Satoshi appeared, the entire Zenan clan had started to change. And now, for some reason, they were paying attention to him. Naobito's voice deepened. Toji, I know exactly how strong you are. The heavenly restriction isn't a weakness, it's an advantage. Naobitsu's gaze held a rare intensity. I plan to personally report your situation to the clan head. In the future, you will be recognized as the true backbone of the Zenan clan. A pause. Then, Naobito placed a firm hand on Toji's shoulder, his expression filled with undeniable respect. And as for Gojo Satoshi, Naobito continued. The clan has already agreed that we will not take any hostile action against him, just as we have never directly acted against the Six Eyes. However, the Zenan clan does want a Zanpakut of our own. That's where you come in, Toji. Naobitsu's tone turned serious. Previously, there were some disagreements between Zenan Shinsuke and Gojo Satoshi. Because of that, direct negotiations will be difficult. So, I hope that you will act as the Zenan clan's representative, and secure a Zanpakut from Gojo Satoshi for us. This is your mission from the family, Toji. Chapter 55, Zanpakut that matches his status, bonus. Inside the Zenan clan's cursed tool storage room, Toji walked leisurely through the collection, his hands tucked into the sleeves of his kimono, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. So, this is the mission the family has assigned me? Well, at least I don't have to sneak in to grab what I need. Ha! The Zenan clan is finally starting to take me seriously? That's almost amusing. The Zenan, Gojo, and Kamo clans, the so-called three great families of Jujutsu society, are all just corrupt institutions, yet they act as if they're so important. Honor? Legacy? What does any of that have to do with me? Still, this mission did come with its perks. Using it as an excuse to openly select a cursed tool saves me the trouble. Now I can focus my energy on finding something suitable for that kid, Satoshi. The Zenan clan, being one of the strongest families in the sorcerer world, had an impressive stockpile of cursed tools. The storage room was packed with weapons of various grades, some of which were special grade. As he walked past the higher tier tools, Toji shook his head. Too bad none of these fit Satoshi's needs. Otherwise, I'd hand him a special grade cursed tool and see if its quality affects the strength of his Zanpakut. With a hint of amusement, Toji continued browsing. Then, something caught his eye, a sword in the corner of the room. Gojo clan cursed tool storage room. Satoshi, are you really leaving empty-handed? Watching Satoshi step out of the storage room without taking anything, Satoru's expression was filled with disappointment. He had followed Satoshi into the storage room full of anticipation, eagerly waiting to see what kind of Zanpakut would be forged for him. But now, seeing Satoshi walk away with nothing, he realized he'd have to wait even longer. Satoru, I can't just forge your Zanpakut whenever I feel like it, Satoshi replied, his tone helpless. There wasn't a single cursed tool that matched the characteristics of the Zanpakut I have in mind. Forcing it would only waste materials. It's fine. If we couldn't find anything here, then we'll just wait. I asked Toji to help me search for one, maybe he'll find something useful. Satoshi reassured him. After all, a Zanpakut wasn't something you could just pick up anywhere. Finding the right materials to forge one was a slow and precise process. Good things take time, Satoru. Just be patient a little longer. Or do you want something like Suzumashi instead? Would you be satisfied with a Zanpakut that doesn't match your potential? Satoshi looked at him meaningfully. If Satoru didn't have any specific demands, it would be much easier to forge a generic Zanpakut with slightly weaker abilities. The requirements wouldn't be as strict. However, Satoshi didn't feel right about giving Satoru something ordinary. Besides, a lackluster Zanpakut wouldn't be enough to ignite Satoru's interest in exploring Shikai and Bankai. Yeah, no thanks. Satoru quickly shook his head. He wanted something special, like Sodi no Shirayuki, something with flair. The thought of ending up with something as plain and unassuming as Suzumashi was unacceptable. For the sake of a Zanpakut worthy of him, he was willing to wait. See? No need to rush, then, Satoshi chuckled. Satoru's reaction was exactly what he expected. The strongest sorcerer of the future needed a Zanpakut that truly reflected his status. The next day, Forge House. Satoru watched as Shanichi demonstrated the Shikai of Suzumashi, and his conversation with Satoshi from the previous day resurfaced in his mind. Yet, I really don't like how Suzumashi looks. It's too plain. Satoshi, you better not give me something like this. After completing the formalities of his promotion, Shanichi finally returned to the Gojo clan estate. He was now officially a grade 1 sorcerer, one of the highest-ranking members of the clan. His influence had also grown significantly. And yet, despite this, he remained respectful toward Satoshi and Satoru, showing no trace of arrogance. Young Master Satoshi, Young Master Satoru, this is Suzumashi's Shikai. There are two techniques. The first, Suzumashi is Hiki, Kaimei, has a hypnotic effect and serves as an auxiliary ability. The second, Suzumashi Nishiki, Benahik, is a powerful offensive technique that played a key role in my recent battle. During my fight with a special grade cursed spirit, it was only thanks to the threat of Benahik that we were able to temporarily force the spirit to retreat. As he spoke, Shanichi glanced at Satoshi, his eyes flashing with gratitude. Young Master Satoshi, it's a good thing you insisted that I bring Suzumashi with me. If not for that, I and Yaji Hide-sugu, the grade 1 sorcerer from the Yaji clan, would have likely died on this mission. Hide-sugu said that once he recovers, he plans to personally thank you. Looking at the two identical Six Eyes users before him, Shanichi couldn't help but feel a deep sense of appreciation. He couldn't even begin to imagine what would have happened if he hadn't brought Suzumashi with him. Well done, Shanichi. Satoru grinned. Now that you're a grade 1 sorcerer, the clan won't waste your time on guard duty anymore. You're officially one of the big players now. Just don't forget to support me and Satoshi when the time comes. His words were half joking, but the underlying message was clear. Shanichi's growth meant more influence for Satoshi within the clan. That, in turn, would help shift the family's perception of Satoshi's worth. Young Master Satoru, I will protect both you and Young Master Satoshi. Shanichi nodded firmly. Even though he had reached grade 1, he was well aware of where his true strength came from. Satoshi, meanwhile, silently observed both Shanichi and Suzumashi for a long moment before asking. Uncle Shanichi, how's your connection with Suzumashi now? Shanichi was, in many ways, an experiment for Satoshi, the first person besides himself to use a borrowed Zanpakut. Naturally, Satoshi was curious about how the bond between Shanichi and Suzumashi had developed. He needed data. Yes, young Master Satoshi. Suzumashi spoke to me once before. After that, I could sense its presence. But, no matter how much I called out afterward, Suzumashi never spoke to me again. Shanichi didn't hesitate to explain his experience. Satoshi was silent for a moment. Then, internally, he sighed. Yeah, that was me talking to you, not Suzumashi. There's no way it would respond. Casually brushing past the topic, Satoshi simply made a mental note of the information. Just as he finished recording his thoughts, a sudden knock echoed from the door of the forge. Chapter 56, This man was born to be in conflict with me, bonus. Hey, is everyone here? Looks like we've got quite the gathering. Toji's lazy voice echoed through the room. Hearing this, Satoru didn't even bother to look up, still lost in thought about what his future Zanpakut would look like. Meanwhile, Shanichi, upon seeing Toji, immediately tensed up. After his recent battle with a special grade cursed spirit, his connection with Suzumashi had deepened, granting him a sharper perception of the world around him. Previously, he had merely sensed that Toji was dangerous, a vague but persistent feeling. But now, that feeling had only grown stronger. Shanichi's expression subtly changed. Why does this man, who has no cursed energy at all, radiate such an overwhelming pressure, even to a grade 1 sorcerer like me? Did young Master Satoshi already know about Toji's unusual nature? Is that why he was so intent on befriending him? Noticing Shanichi staring at him, Toji simply shrugged. Hey, congrats on the promotion. This whole event caused quite a stir. Even a so-called useless member of the Zenan clan like me managed to hear about it. Toji's tone was light-hearted, unfazed by Shanichi's wary gaze. Then, turning to Satoshi, he smirked. At the same time, Satoshi was also eyeing Toji, but not because of what he had said. Instead, his attention was completely focused on the cloth-wrapped object Toji was holding. After 2 days of not seeing you, this is the welcome I get. Toji raised an eyebrow. Young Master Satoshi, is this how the 6 eyes of the Gojo clan treat their guests? He stood there with his arms crossed, the cursed tool resting diagonally across his chest. A flicker of amusement danced in his eyes. Satoshi, however, remained composed. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with excitement. Toji isn't the type to play games. If he had come here personally with a cursed tool, then that meant he had found what Satoshi needed. All right, hand it over. Let me take a look. As for our previous deal, I'll move it up my priority list. Satoshi instantly understood Toji's real message. He was urging him to hurry up and forge his own Zanpakut. Since Satoshi was just as direct as Toji, he wasted no time getting to the point. Satisfied with the response, Toji tossed the cursed tool to him. I found one in the Zenan clan's storage vault that matches your requirements. There were actually a few options, but I figured it'd be better if you picked the materials yourself. Once you're done with this one, come with me to the Zenan estate. I want my Zanpakut to be forged properly, I'm not about to settle for anything less. His words made Satoshi pause for a brief moment. The Zenan clan, with its long history, actually had multiple cursed tools that fit the criteria. The Gojo clan's storage had nothing even close. But upon thinking about it, it made sense. After all, the traits he was searching for were linked to the Zenan clan's most powerful inherited technique. It was only natural that they would have collected relevant tools over time. Satoshi nodded in agreement. On the side, both Satoru and Shanichi suddenly reacted. Wait, you just said forging a Zanpakut. The two of them looked back and forth between Toji and Satoshi. It was obvious that these two had some secret agreement they hadn't been let in on. Seeing Satoru's curiosity, Satoshi twirled the cursed tool in his hand, a mischievous smile forming on his lips. That's right, Satoru. See this? Toji found this cursed tool for you. It's perfect for forging your Zanpakut. So? Feeling grateful to him. Even after spending more than a month together, Satoshi could still sense the subtle tension between Satoru and Toji. It wasn't outright hostility, more like an underlying resistance. It showed in small, almost imperceptible ways, but it was there. For a brief moment, Satoru's sky-blue eyes flashed with surprise. He looked at Toji, finally recalling something Satoshi had joked about before. In the future, your Zanpakut will probably rely on Toji's help. That joke had actually come true. And now, remembering his initial reluctance toward Toji, Satoru felt a little awkward. He knew exactly why he had been so resistant toward Toji. Over the past month, he had noticed how naturally Satoshi and Toji got along. They shared an easy camaraderie, a bond that he didn't have with Satoshi. Maybe it was because they were both heavenly restriction bearers, they simply understood each other in a way that no one else could. But deep down, Satoru knew the real reason for his feelings. His relationship with Satoshi was not as close as it should be. Satoshi himself might not have realized it, but Satoru was fully aware. Ever since birth, he had been the reason Satoshi was ostracized by the Gojo clan. Because of him, Satoshi had been denied the treatment he deserved. Originally, Satoru had planned to find a way to restore Satoshi's cursed energy as a way to make amends. But now, Satoshi had forged his own path, using his talents to create something entirely new. Because of that, Satoru had lost the opportunity to repay him. And despite his usual carefree attitude, it bothered him. Even if he didn't want to admit it, the truth was simple. He was jealous. And now, seeing Toji, the very person he had been avoiding, deliver the materials for his Zanpakut, Satoru wondered if he had been acting childish all along. Maybe I really can become friends with Toji. Just as that thought crossed his mind. Gojo brat, you're such a hassle, Toji suddenly muttered, exasperated. You had to cut in line and get your Zanpakut before mine? I should kick you out of here. Then, smirking, he added, I've never tried kicking the Six Eyes user of the Gojo clan before, wonder how far you'd fly. Instantly, Satoru's face darkened. Never mind. I still don't get along with this guy. Chapter 57, Restarting the Forge, a new Zanpakut, bonus. There are many cursed tools in the Zenan family's treasury. If you can really forge one that suits me, I might be able to help you find more in the future. Toji's attention remained fixed on Satoshi. He had no sense of belonging to the Zenan family and didn't care about what kind of cursed tools were stored in their secret vaults. For most Jujutsu Kaisen fans, Toji's exclusive weapon should still be the inverted spear of heaven, right? After all, that was the cursed tool that nearly killed Satoru. I wonder if fans of the original series would feel uneasy seeing Toji wielding a Zanpakut instead of the inverted spear of heaven? Satoshi solemnly closed the doors of the forge. It was time to forge his next Zanpakut. This time, the blade being forged was one meant for Satoru. That meant Satoshi had to take this process even more seriously. The rhythmic sound of hammering metal ding ding dang dang echoed through the forge. The expressions of the hidden observers around the forge changed. Ever since Shanichi had revealed information about Suzumashi, every major faction, whether it was the clan heads, the elders, or the curse user faction, had been keeping a close watch on Satoshi's actions. Originally, they had assumed he wouldn't start forging a new Zanpakut so soon. However, no one expected that Toji's arrival would push Satoshi to begin a new forging session without warning. None of them believed he was forging an ordinary cursed tool. After all, the only weapons that could warrant such attention in this forge were the mysterious Zanpakut. Within the Gojo clan, Kuma-en frowned as he read the report from his informants. His eyes were filled with doubt. How does Satoshi have this much energy? This shouldn't be possible. The first was Sodi no Shirayuki, and the second was Suzumashi with a month's gap between them. But this? Why is he forging another so soon? Something's off. Something isn't right. Kuma-en, who had already begun consolidating his control over the Gojo family, did not want anything interfering with his rise to power. So he was hoping to hear that the forging had failed. Within the Twin Curse faction, most of its members simply did not believe that Satoshi could successfully forge a third Zanpakut in such a short amount of time. Inside the main estate, an old man from the Gojo clan listened to the news and couldn't help but smile. Ever since Satoru and Satoshi had visited the clan's armory yesterday, he had already guessed that Satoshi was preparing a Zanpakut for Satoru. Brothers should support and respect one another. That was the foundation for revitalizing the clan. Having two Six Eyes users in the Gojo clan, Satoru and Satoshi, was a true blessing. But to think the Gojo clan's armory couldn't provide the cursed tool Satoshi needed. As expected, we've neglected the development of cursed tools for far too long. It seems I need to allocate more resources to Takia in the future. It would be disgraceful if the Zanpakut used by Satoru came from the Zenan family rather than our own. The old man shook his head. In his final years, he wanted to do everything in his power to set the Gojo clan on the right path. Jujutsu Blacksmith Association. Gojo Satoshi has started forging again. It seems he's working on another Zanpakut. Kamoshin listened to the report from his informants within the Gojo clan. A ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. It was time to move forward with their plans. We absolutely cannot allow Gojo Satoshi to spread his influence unchecked. If he successfully forges another Zanpakut, the entire cursed tool industry will be turned upside down. As the only recognized Grandmaster blacksmith, Kamoshin refused to let his status be threatened. He had publicly expressed skepticism about Gojo Satoshi's ability to forge yet another Zanpakut. But deep down, the sinister measures he was preparing revealed his true fears. He could succeed. That child, Gojo Satoshi, might actually forge a third Zanpakut. No matter how much Kamoshin wanted to deny it, that was what he truly believed. Inside the Gojo clan's forge, Satoshi himself hadn't expected that his forging would attract the attention of the entire Jujutsu world. Every major faction, every informed individual, had focused their attention on this seemingly unremarkable forge. Inside, Toji, Shanichi, and Satoru held their breath, watching as Satoshi swung his hammer again and again. Sweat dripped from his forehead as the blade blank slowly took shape in his hands. Every time he forged a Zanpakut, he would call upon Nimeyaitsu's spirit for guidance. This time, he was determined to craft a blade that would be the perfect match for Gojo Satoru. It had to be absolutely cool. It had to suit Satoru's kingly aura. As Satoshi unwrapped the cloth covering the cursed tool, a pink cursed sword was revealed. Is this the material Satoshi is using to forge his Zanpakut? It's pink, it looks kind of feminine. A flicker of doubt passed through Satoru's piercing azure eyes. This material didn't match his expectations for a Zanpakut. However, he remained silent. The forging process had already begun, there was no turning back now. He could only wait for the final result. Satoshi pressed the pink cursed tool against the blade blank. As he continued forging without pause for an entire hour, the rhythmic hammering sound finally ceased. At that moment, the hidden observers lurking in the darkness tensed. It was time for the truth to be revealed. No one knew if Satoshi had succeeded in forging another Zanpakut. Previously, when Sodi no Shirayuki and Suzumashi were completed, no one had paid attention to the unusual phenomena that accompanied their creation. However, logically speaking, a Zanpakut of this caliber should manifest some kind of special phenomenon upon completion, right? Yet, to their surprise, as the hammering ceased, the forge fell into an eerie silence. The atmosphere suggested only one thing: failure. Within the Twin Curse faction, many felt a sense of schadenfreude. If Satoshi failed, he wouldn't be able to rally further support within the clan. The family elders, on the other hand, felt deep regret. They had hoped to use Satoshi's Zanpakut as a counterbalance to Kuma-en's faction, but if he had failed, then that plan was doomed. Chapter 58, Satoru's Zanpakut, Bonus. Seeing the Asachi in Satoshi's hands and sensing the sharp aura it emanated, Satoru, Toji, and Shanichi all realized the forging had succeeded. Having witnessed the transformations of Sodi no Shirayuki and Suzumashi, Satoru looked at the Asachi, eagerly anticipating the Zanpakut's true form once it achieved Shikai. Satoshi, what's this Zanpakut called? Satoru's 6 eyes gleamed with excitement. Earlier, he had been worried that the pink cursed tool wouldn't suit his aesthetic preferences. But now that the Zanpakut had truly been born, every detail about it mattered to him. Gojo Satoshi lifted his head slightly, holding up the Asachi as he caught his breath, admiring his latest work. Beeb. Congratulations to the host for successfully forging the Zanpakut Senbonzakura. Senbonzakura. Just as I expected. Satoshi nodded in satisfaction. The cursed tool he had asked Toji to find had to possess characteristics related to cherry blossoms or fragmentation. Using that cursed tool as a medium, Satoshi had successfully used the system to forge Senbonzakura, the Zanpakut of Kukaki Byakuya. In his opinion, the way Senbonzakura's countless cherry blossom-like blades scattered aligned perfectly with Satoru's temperament. Once it reached Shikai and Bankai, its form and abilities would suit Satoru's cool personality even more. Now that Satoru has Senbonzakura, he'll probably be eager to master Shikai and Bankai. With his talent, he might even achieve Bankai in an unbelievably short time. If that happens, he could be the first person to provide me with skills. After a brief moment of thought, Satoshi snapped back to reality. Seeing Satoru staring at him with anticipation, he casually tossed the Asachi over. The moment Satoru caught Senbonzakura, Satoshi noticed that his system's Zanpakut display had updated. Zanpakut, Sodi no Shirayuki, owner, Gojo Satoshi, borrower, none. Zanpakut, Suzumashi, owner, Gojo Satoshi, borrower, Gojo Shanichi. Zanpakut, Senbonzakura, owner, Gojo Satoshi, borrower, Gojo Satoru. Satoshi had successfully loaned out Senbonzakura, binding it to Gojo Satoru. Satoru, this Zanpakut is called Senbonzakura, your future partner. As Satoshi spoke, Satoru, Shanichi, and Toji all instinctively repeated the name. Senbonzakura. Satoru didn't understand why his Zanpakut was named that, but for some reason, he found it deeply satisfying. A grin spread across his face as he raised the sword in his hand, his 6 eyes shining with anticipation. All right, let's do this, Shikai. Senbonzakura. Satoru could hardly wait to see his Zanpakut's true form. The moment he grasped it, he felt a strong connection. Senbonzakura had acknowledged him. He was confident he could release its Shikai. however. As soon as the words left Satoru's mouth, an awkward silence filled the forge. 10 seconds passed. The Asachi in Satoru's hand remained unchanged. It didn't transform like Sodi no Shirayuki or Suzumushi. Satoru's expression stiffened. His entire body seemed frozen as he hesitantly turned his gaze toward Satoshi, silently pleading for help. Satoshi could barely contain his laughter. How could you expect it to work instantly? No matter how talented Satoru was, no matter how compatible he was with Senbonzakura, he couldn't just activate Shikai out of nowhere. Satoshi tried his best to keep a straight face, but in the end, he couldn't hold it in. Ha 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 ha. A burst of laughter erupted from him. Toji, who had been watching, also started laughing, thoroughly enjoying the sight of the Six Eyes prodigy embarrassing himself. This moment was worth remembering forever. This was definitely going to be a dark chapter in the life of the man who would become the world's strongest sorcerer. Only Shanichi felt a bit of sympathy for Satoru. He knew how difficult it was to unlock Shikai, so he understood Satoru's frustration. However, his own experience with Suzumushi had been entirely different, so he couldn't offer much advice. As the awkward atmosphere lingered, Gojo Satoshi stepped up beside Satoru. Satoru, every Zanpakut has its own Shikai command. You need to communicate with Senbonzakura. The more impatient you are, the less likely you are to succeed. A Zanpakut is your companion. Senbonzakura has its own will. You need to hear its name from within. Satoru took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Satoshi was right. He had rushed into it without forming a proper connection with Senbonzakura. He tightened his grip on the sword, holding it upright in front of him, his azure six eyes fixed on the blade. To awaken Senbonzakura, he had to deepen his bond with it. Are you ready to speak? Satoru focused his consciousness into the blade. In the next moment, his mind was pulled into an unfamiliar space. Before him stood an enormous sacred cherry blossom tree, its petals scattering endlessly into the air. This was Senbonzakura's inner world. Senbonzakura, my future partner. Show me your true form. A voice echoed in his mind. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. Toji, who had been laughing at Satoru moments ago, abruptly froze. A sharp, stinging sensation pricked at his skin. Is this coming from Senbonzakura? It's actually piercing through my defenses? Toji knew exactly how tough his body was. Yet, even before it had been released, Senbonzakura was making his skin tingle with an almost unbearable sharpness. His heart pounded with excitement. What kind of abilities did this Zanpakut possess? At the same time, Satoru slowly exhaled and murmured. Scatter. Meanwhile, outside the forge, the flames inside had died down. There were no unusual phenomena, no visible disturbances. The hidden observers all nodded to themselves. Of course. Gojo Satoshi must have failed this time. A weapon as special as a Zanpakut required not just precise forging methods but also a fair amount of luck. Perhaps, Gojo Satoshi's luck had finally run out. Maybe he would succeed next time. But for now, the forging of this Zanpakut had undoubtedly ended in failure. Chapter 59, Scatter, Senbonzakura. Bonus. With this outcome, it wasn't just the Twin Curse faction under Kuma-en that felt relieved. Even the other clans, who had been silently keeping an eye on Satoshi's Zanpakut, likely felt the same. As the informants lurking around the Gojo estate spread word that Satoshi's forging attempt had seemingly failed, the sky suddenly changed color. Is it snowing? One of the hidden observers muttered absent-mindedly. But in the next instant, they realized that what was falling from the sky wasn't snow. It was pink and white cherry blossom petals. What's going on? Cherry blossoms in the middle of winter. Why are there so many petals floating in the air? Many onlookers felt that the scene was too surreal, something out of a dream rather than reality. It was as if nature itself had created a miracle, cherry blossoms blooming in the heart of winter. The more perceptive informants quickly changed their expressions. By process of elimination, there was only one explanation for the phenomenon unfolding before them. It had to be connected to Gojo Satoshi and his latest creation. Up until now, everything he had done in the forge had been for the purpose of forging a new Zanpakut. Now that this strange phenomenon had appeared, did it mean that Gojo Satoshi had successfully created his third Zanpakut? Inside the forge, Satoru spoke the command that would awaken his blade. Scatter, Senbonzakura. The moment he finished speaking, the Zanpakut in his hand radiated a soft pink glow. Then, the entire blade slowly began to dissolve. The pink light that had enveloped the sword transformed into countless cherry blossom petals, filling the forge. A second later, the wave of scattered petals burst through the roof, soaring into the sky like steam rising from a geyser. A fountain of cherry blossom petals erupted outward, and within mere seconds, the entire Gojo estate was engulfed in a dazzling pink storm. This is the true form of Senbonzakura. It's absolutely stunning, almost excessive, isn't it? Shanichi gazed at the countless petals swirling around him, then glanced down at Suzumashi in his hand. A wave of disappointment washed over him. Just from appearances alone, Senbonzakura had already won. Its manifestation was just as overwhelming as Sodi no Shirayuki, the first Zanpakut Satoshi had forged. Each of these petals is a blade. So this is the true nature of Senbonzakura? Tens of thousands of cherry blossom petals, is this the secret behind Senbonzakura's power? Controlling that many blades at once. That's an absolutely insane combat style. Toji wasn't the type to be impressed by aesthetics. The moment Senbonzakura was unleashed, his focus zeroed in on its technique. To him, what mattered most was power. He didn't care if his own Zanpakut looked flashy, only that it was strong. There was no doubt in his mind. A Zanpakut capable of transforming into millions of cherry blossom blades had to be incredibly powerful. Watching Senbonzakura in action, Toji found himself anticipating his own future blade. He was confident that Gojo Satoshi wouldn't give him anything mediocre. And he firmly believed his Zanpakut would not be weaker than Satoru's. Outside the forge, the sight of the cherry blossom fountain bursting through the roof left everyone utterly stunned. At this point, if they still couldn't comprehend what was happening, they had no right to call themselves informants. This was an ability unlike any that had been seen before. It wasn't Sodi no Shirayuki's ice-based techniques, nor was it Suzumashi's hypnotic abilities. This was something entirely new. A Zanpakut that used cherry blossom petals as weapons, one with an enormous attack range. A brand new Zanpakut had been born. At that moment, the news spread like wildfire across the entire Jujutsu world. Even those who hadn't been paying close attention to the Gojo Forge were now captivated by the spectacle. Sorcerers across the city looked up and saw the enormous pink cloud hovering over the Gojo estate. In the dead of winter, the Gojo estate was now blooming with radiant cherry blossoms. A sight like this, it defied all logic, completely shattering nature's laws. In the Yaji household, Yaji Hidesogu stared at the Gojo estate from afar, now completely dyed pink, and sighed. Yuzuki, you need to stop entertaining the thought of using the Gojo family to boost the Yaji family's reputation. Gojo Shinichi's swordsmanship is already on par with Seimon's. And now, with the power of his Zanpakut, Suzumashi, Seimon won't stand a chance until he gets a Zanpakut of his own. More importantly, judging by this phenomenon, Gojo Satoshi has successfully forged his third Zanpakut. This display alone proves that the new blade is anything but ordinary. I'd even wager that its power is greater than Shinichi's Suzumashi. With this sheer volume of cherry blossom petals, that Zanpakut might be on an entirely different level. If Shanichi had wielded this Zanpakut during that battle, that special grade cursed spirit never would have escaped. Hidesogu's words left Yaji Yuzuki and Yaji Seimon silent. As the direct descendants of Yaji Jabei, the Yaji family took great pride in their swordsmanship. They had never been willing to submit to any other family when it came to Zanjutsu. But unfortunately, in the world of Jujutsu, swordsmanship alone was not enough. At the end of the day, power came down to techniques and cursed energy. Yaji Hidesogu and Yaji Yuzuki were undoubtedly the strongest swordsmen in the family. Yet faced with Hidesogu's words, the analysis of the family's sole grade 1 sorcerer, they had no choice but to acknowledge reality. Besides, Hidesogu continued, Shanichi saved my life. I have no intention of making an enemy out of him now that he's been promoted to grade 1. I also want to use my connection with him to get closer to Gojo Satoshi. In the future, that man will not be someone people can ignore just because he lacks cursed energy. Mark my words, anyone who underestimates Gojo Satoshi now, will regret it later. There was absolute conviction in Hidesogu's voice. Hearing this, Yaji Yuzuki slowly nodded. In that moment, he made a decision that would reshape the Yaji family's future. They would no longer support Gojo Kumaen. Instead, they would align themselves with Gojo Satoshi and the forces backing him. Even if there was a massive gap in strength between the Yaji and Gojo families, their stance as a respected Jujutsu clan would provide Satoshi with crucial support in the battles to come. Chapter 60, Times Have Changed. Zenan Clan Estate. Zenan Naobito and Zenan Aji gathered once again in the clan leader's study. This time, their expressions were far more serious than before. Even though they had already paid close attention to Gojo Satoshi, they never expected that he would be able to forge a third Zanpakut in such a short period. The elderly clan head sighed as he looked at his two sons. As expected, every wielder of the six eyes from the Gojo clan was in existence to be feared. Even though Gojo Satoshi possessed no cursed energy and could not become a Jujutsu sorcerer, he had still managed to shake the entire Jujutsu world. At his current age, his influence had already reached this level. Then, in the future when Gojo Satoru, the true Six Eyes, fully masters the limitless techniques of the Gojo clan. Gojo Satoru plus Gojo Satoshi? The entire Jujutsu world might truly have to submit to the Gojo clan. This was something the Zenan clan, a family with an equally long and proud history, could never accept. The Zenan clan had its own pride, its own foundation, one that was not inferior to that of the Gojo clan. Thus, he would never allow their family to decline so easily. We must master the techniques behind the Zanpakut. Naobito, what's the current progress on this mission? The old man did not expect an immediate, effective answer. He knew that he was placing a difficult task on Naobito's shoulders after all, it had only been 2 days since their last discussion. Gojo Satoshi rarely left the Gojo clan estate, making it difficult for the Zenan clan to establish contact with him. However, the next words that came out of Naobito's mouth shocked both the clan head and Zenan Aji. At present, Toji has taken action. The Zanpakut Gojo Satoshi forged this time used materials from the Zenan clan's treasury of cursed tools. Naobito reported the current situation carefully. When the clan head and Aji heard that Gojo Satoshi had agreed to forge a Zanpakut for Toji, they were momentarily stunned. They had considered paying an enormous price to obtain a Zanpakut. But they had never imagined that such an outcome could be achieved so easily. As the room fell into silence, Zenan Naobito spoke again in a low voice. Soon, the materials for the cursed tools Gojo Satoshi will forge for Toji will likely come directly from the treasury. At that time, Toji will personally invite Gojo Satoshi to the Zenan clan estate. When that happens, we may have an opportunity to communicate with him directly. Based on my understanding of the Gojo clan, Gojo Satoshi has his own independent thoughts. Having been ignored and excluded by his own clan members for so many years, it's possible that he lacks a sense of belonging to the Gojo clan. If the opportunity arises, we could even attempt to bring this so-called false Six Eyes into the Zenan clan. After all, Gojo Satoshi has already proven his worth. Even without a shred of cursed energy, he has the potential to stand at the pinnacle of the Jujutsu world just like Gojo Satoru. Naobito's words once again left the room in silence. Satoshi's value was undeniable. No one could afford to underestimate him simply because of a heavenly restriction. Just as Naobito had pointed out, if Gojo Satoshi truly joined the Zenan clan, it could prevent the clan's reputation from falling in the future. But the real question was, would someone like Gojo Satoshi who had no cursed energy be willing to embrace the atmosphere of the Zenan clan? No one could say for sure. Yet, they seemed to possess an unexpected bargaining chip in Toji, someone they had never truly valued before. Who would have thought that someone without cursed energy, someone overlooked by their family for years, could become the key to shifting the Zenan clan's future? Seeing that both the clan head and Zenan Aji understood Toji's significance, Naobito pressed forward. Clan head, Aji. While Toji has no cursed energy, his physical prowess is unmatched in this generation. His raw physical strength allows him to fight head-on against Gojo Satoshi's Zanpakut. For the sake of even the slimmest possibility, we must abandon the outdated mindset of looking down on those without cursed energy. After all, both Gojo Satoshi and Toji are individuals without cursed energy. They have both been ignored and ostracized by their families since childhood. This kind of neglect only breeds resentment and internal friction. For those with true power like Toji and Gojo Satoshi, the clan will become nothing more than a shackle to them. If the clan offers nothing for them to be attached to, they will never prioritize the clan's interests in their future decisions. Naobito's words struck a chord with the old clan head. Times have changed. For the first time, he realized that he was beginning to fall behind. The traditions he had established for his clan had now become an obstacle to its growth. Perhaps, the supremacy of cursed energy wasn't absolute. After all, the world of Jujutsu did not only consist of sorcerers. Naobito, it seems I must take greater care in steering the clan's future. The clan head let out a long sigh, casting a deep look at Aji before once again entrusting the task to Naobito. Even though he was old, he could still see the difference in stance between Aji and Naobito. Aji had always been a staunch believer in the supremacy of cursed energy. The rigid mindset within the clan was largely due to his influence. Under such circumstances, the responsibility of correcting this direction could not be given to Aji, it could only be entrusted to Naobito. As for how Aji would view this decision, the clan head didn't particularly care. He was still alive. As long as he lived, no one within the Zenan clan would dare to fight over the position of clan head. Like the Gojo clan's leader, his only wish now was to pave a new path for the Zenan clan before his time came. And on this path, Gojo Satoshi and his Zanpakut were critical. Thus, in the face of these two factors, everything else had to take a back seat. At this moment, the most important person in advancing this entire endeavor was the very person the Zenan clan had never thought highly of.
Thanks for listening.